I've never had a conversation like this on the show.
I didn't know it was going to happen, and neither did you. So I started off as like a white nationalist guy.
You got the call. Now you're part of the conspiracy.
Every conspiracy, Jeremy, you could think of, I looked into it because I didn't know what to believe anymore. My government's lying to me. What else is not true? Of course, the final red pill is the Jews.
You've said that you were leaving this all behind. Is it fair for people to be skeptical?
But if I'm walking away from this, the least I can do is correct myself publicly. Someone like me who was this fanatic anti-Semite, a global menace in a sense, even I can correct myself, but not many people are like me.
You come through the war, you come through 9/11, you come through looking into the Illuminati and the lizard people.
Yeah.
You arrive at anti-Semitism.
You think I want to think these things? I don't know if any conspiracy theorist is like, I want to be a conspiracy theorist.
I agree with your dad. Jesus loves you. Can I push back on one thing?
Sure.
I want you guys to know that the world isn't as bad as you think it is.
Even me trying to be doing the righteous thing, still going to be interpreted as being a traitor. And after this show, oh my God, it's over.
Lucas Gage, thank you for being on the show.
Pleasure to be here, Jeremy. Thank you for inviting me.
What is low IQ anti-Semitism?
Good question. Well, I would describe it as a type of anti-Semitism where you just blame the Jews for literally everything, including things they can't possibly do. So it's not a critique of like AIPAC or, some organization or even like Soros. It's like they control NASA or they are the ones that are responsible for every ill in history. You give them an omnipotence that they don't have because they're like any other group in the world. And so it's this repetitive, hateful, and I mean hateful in the sense that you don't even think about what you're saying. It's almost like a tick, like, it's like Jews. And I got to that point, honestly. I really started like, good morning, everyone except Israel or something stupid like that. And every day just being toxic. There's no solutions. There's no strategy. That's why it's low IQ. You're not even having a conversation. You're just saying, me angry, Jews go smash type of thing, Yeah.
You've said recently that you've left behind low IQ anti-Semitism. Does that imply that there's a high IQ anti-Semitism?
Yeah, so as I was alluding to, higher IQ anti-Semitism, the reason I say it's high IQ anti-Semitism is because what critiques are legitimate are considered anti-Semitism to shut down the conversation. So if you say something like, look, George Soros is a problem, he's doing this, or AIPAC has a lot of power, groups will say that's anti-Semitic. If you don't support Israel, well, that's anti-Semitic. That to me is the type of anti-Semitism that shouldn't be called anti-Semitism. I would define anti-Semitism as something that I reached, where it's like it's not even about being hateful toward people. It's just all Jews are bad. And even the ones that are good are only good to make the bad ones look good or to protect them. So it's almost like this conspiratorial type of anti-Semitism is the low IQ version. And the high IQ one is things that are not anti-Semitism. That shouldn't be called those things. And these are the discussions we should have about certain groups and certain powers. So yes, there is a high IQ anti-Semitism, but I wouldn't actually call it anti-Semitism.
So I've never had a conversation like this on the show. And my hunch is that a lot of people who watch this show haven't engaged in a conversation like this either. So I think it's important for people to sort of understand where you are in your journey and then to talk a little bit about how you came to be at this point. Right. In the last year, you've broken ranks with a lot of the people in what you would call the low IQ anti-Semitism movement, to which you, as you've just said, to which you've belonged for some period of time. I'd like to know what precipitated that break, and then I'd like to understand how you came to be in that world in the first place. So let's start with the break.
Yeah. So the break, it came from looking at the people I was around and analyzing, okay, what are we actually doing? And then seeing the very people that I was with, many of whom I woke up actually, started to turn on me the second I started being more nuanced. And so, for example, Stu Peters was the big domino. I don't even want to mention him, but I have to because it's part of my story.
Yeah.
Stu Peters put out this coin called J-Proof, Jew-proof, right? And I thought it was a funny meme coin. He's like, look, here's the plan, Lucas. I'm going to put out a meme coin, right? And no one has ever stabilized a meme coin. So we'll get our guys in. We'll open it up to China, all these degenerate gamblers. I'll hold the wallet at 85%. I'll never sell. I'm like, okay. So he launches the coin. He stabilizes 85%, never moves. I go, all right. What I didn't know is there's a type of scam called a slow rug scam, where it's always 85, but the liquidity goes down. He was moving wallets around, him and his partners, okay? I didn't catch it until they made a very big mistake with an arbitrage bot. They lost like 60 grand in one day. And it went, and I go, what's that? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm like, no, there's something off here. Even though I'm not a crypto guy, other people were in the J-Proof crew. Admins they defected. They said, Lucas, you're right, something's wrong. So it started with Stu, and I called him out. I pulled out, I lost $9,000 just to tell everyone. I said, we got to tell now. And when I did that, he started lying about me, of course, to defend his grift. And others would say, hey, stop infighting. I'm like, infighting? This guy's robbing you. He's a Christian, supposedly, using a Christian coin called J-Proof to literally rob all of you. Shouldn't we get rid of this? No, stop infighting. We got to fight the Jews. I'm like, you don't need to fight the Jews with a scammer. And then, Jeremy, this is what really got to me. People started DMing, hey, thank God you're doing this. Why? He's a criminal. He's been he's domestic violence. He impersonated someone to get into Jesse Ventura's mansion. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, I didn't know anything about him because there's no accountability at all in the JQ movement, right? So I didn't know this guy was bad news. I would have never been his friend. I would have never actually didn't promote the coin, thank God, because I had a friend of mine said, don't promote it, it'll ruin you. Just buy it if you want, but don't like get into J-Proof, right? I didn't do that, luckily. That's the first domino. The second one was the Jake Shields situation where he was promoting this gambling site, right? And all these other Christians were involved too. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? All these Christians, and it's an Israeli gambling site, some weird offshore thing. I'm like, you're Christians, you're not supposed to. And then Jake got mad at me. He started saying he doesn't have PTSD, defaming me, saying I don't have PTSD. I'm like, dude, I'm a war veteran. I have the combat action rib. What are you saying? Stop doing that. He would defame me. No one came to my defense. So where's the accountability again? But the real thing that really did it was the Charlie Kirk assassination. That's when it just, wow, we are gone. It's literally beyond low IQ. It's insane at this point. So those three things happened when all the friends I was with, the allies, they wouldn't keep each other accountable. Mm. They wouldn't defend me. So I kept isolating myself because people, what do they want? They want reach. If you get in a fight with this person, you lose reach with that. You don't get the clout, etc. I didn't care about it, Jeremy. I got into this thing a long time ago, and we'll get into that, where there was no money. So I predicted a year and a half ago, now that there's money involved, now that anyone could join the big tent, it's going to get dumber, crazier, and it's going to become lower IQ. And people like me are going to get pushed away. That's exactly what happened.
This community to which you belong, a lot of prominence online, still very niche in American public life. So even terms that you use that feel very familiar to you, like the JQ.
Yeah.
What is the JQ?
So the JQ refers to the Jewish question, which has been asked throughout centuries for different philosophers or political science type people. That what did we do with the Jewish people? They didn't have a land, so anti-Semitism, pogroms here. What do we do? Even the Jews asked, what do we do with ourselves? That's where Zionism came from. That was the answer to the Jewish question. And so, okay, we'll have a state. Theodor Herzl said, we'll have a state of our own. Well, that didn't really work out at the time. And then the Holocaust, everything like this. So that was the question that was asked about the Jews. What they come in, they have a state within a state. What do we do with these people? And so we just say JQ movement. Other people call it the JP movement, Jewish problem movement. No longer a question, it's a problem. What do you do with the problem? But that's the lingo that we use.
And how did Charlie Kirk's assassination in particular push you away from this?
Well, so as I was saying, more people got into this tent, more freaky people, different conspiracies. Before the blood was out of his neck, Jeremy, instantly it was Israel. I'm like, okay, well, Israel does assassinate. They do things in the Middle East, and they're known for things like that. But why Charlie Kirk? He was like the #1 pro-Israel guy. Oh, well, he said something about October 7th, or he got a text message about donors. Candace, they're going to kill me. I don't know if that text ever came out or whatever. So it was like circumstantial things, but I'm like, but I heard the shot on video and went, shh. Now I'm a Marine. I remember shooting down range. That's a shot coming from a distance. And it was a rifle, right? It wasn't a handgun, and it made that, okay. And he got shot in the throat. So who goes for a throat shot? It must have been either a headshot or a chest shot. The guy missed. So it seems like he's not really good shot. But before the blood came out, it had to be Israel. And then all of a sudden, within a week, it was like every day there was a new shooter from a different angle with a new weapon that we never heard of, whether it be a palm gun, whether Frank Turek killed them with the drone, the camera. Candace said someone in the tunnel. I was like, I had Charlie Kirk assassination fatigue within a week, and I said it. And when I said that, everyone's like, why are you saying that? You're counter signaling. I'm like, no, man, this is out of control. What are we talking about? It doesn't make any sense. Why would Israel kill Charlie Kirk? Now, again, anything's possible within the laws of physics, but what do you have? They have nothing. And so people would just say these things. And the second you veer from that, you're a shill, Lucas. Oh, you got the call. That's what started happening to me, Jerry. And I'm like, I woke you up. What do you mean I got the call? No, why are you covering for Israel? Why is Nick Fuentes covering for Israel? Why is Adam Green? All the OGs who've been doing this 10 years plus, all of us who got in this long ago, we're getting called traitors and shills and Zionists. I'm like, no, we woke you guys up. So my prediction came true, Jeremy. All these new people would come in, flood everything with nonsense, and just completely destroy everything.
So tell us, where does this all start? You spent the last, how long?
14 years.
14 years?
Yeah.
In this community. You've achieved a lot of prominence in that community. You've sold books, you've had huge followings online, and now you're at this turning point. But what's the start? What's the starting point?
9/11. So when I was 17, I was in high school, and I was at the dentist, and I heard that a plane was hit.
Where were you?
I was at a dentist
New Jersey. In New Jersey.
Yeah, in New Jersey. I was in high school. I was at a dentist appointment. And I hear the first tower was struck. I'm like, oh, that's a terrible accident. Moments later, another plane. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So I witnessed 9/11 actually from. I went to this place called Washington Rock. So I was in Greenbrook, New Jersey. My town was Warren, New Jersey, up this hill. On the way up, there's a place called Washington Rock where George Washington was able to see the British coming into New York. So I was able to go on that day to see the towers still smoking. And I remember that. And I went to go check on my sister in school. She was a freshman. And then I went home and I just sat there and I watched the towers. I'm like, they're going to collapse. I didn't have any idea how they would. And they did. I'm like, oh my God, those people. So in me, as I mentioned off camera, I have family who served. My great-grandfather, Marine. My grandfather was an Air Force major. And I'm like, I got to do something for my country. So what got me into the JQ movement was when I learned there was no weapons of mass destruction, it was like a heartbreaking situation. Afterwards of learning that in like 2006 and 7, I went through the conspiracy theory, Bilderbergs, whatever group, what is the Illuminati, reptilians, every conspiracy, Jeremy, you could think of, I looked into it because I didn't know what to believe anymore. If my government's lying to me, what else is not true? Of course, the final red pill is the Jews, right? Oh, well, the Jews did it somehow. So you look into that. So that's how I got into the JQ movement. And I made this video of, well, first I read Mein Kampf. That's what you have to read. Everyone's got to read that. And I read Hitler's words. And he was criticizing left-wing communists. There's a lot of Jews who were involved in that. He's like, they control the media, academia, etc. I was like, I thought this guy was a bad guy. How is he telling me? And I'm Googling, like, is it true? And I'm seeing these things. But what really got me into it was the Great Replacement. Because I said to myself, okay, maybe Hitler had beef with the Jews back then and the all that stuff happened. But whatever, that happened almost a century ago. No, the Great Replacement's still going. And you got the Barbara Specters of the world. You got the George Soroses of the world. And I'm like, oh my God, there's Jews. What's going on? So I made a video called Call of Duty, White People Have to Talk About White Genocide. And that went viral all over the community. David Duke picked it up. I went on his stream or his show or his radio show at the time. I don't think they were streaming back then. Andrew Anglin, the Daily Stormer, I was on Stormfront. So I started off as like a white nationalist guy. I was never a Nazi. You'll never find me saying Heil Hitler or doing an one-arm salute, not even at jest. I was never a LARPer. I never thought National Socialism was the answer to the United States. Nobody would want a dictator here anyway. But I was like a white nationalist. We need to take our country back, the Great Replacement. That's what drove me forward. So I became prominent in these circles, but I always had this back and forth between anti-Semitism and is it our fault too? So even with the Stormfront people, I pissed them off. Like, you guys are blaming Jews way too much. And then they say I'm a flip-flopper then. And then I got into the Trump train. So once I realized that Donald Trump came along and he united all Americans, despite race and religion, under the Trump banner. I go, oh my God, make America great again. No more dancing to the song of globalism. Oh, that's what I want to hear. And he's a billionaire. He doesn't need their money. I'm like, he's going to do it for us. So I jumped on the Trump train, go viral again. And by the way, I'm always going viral, Jeremy. That's why I keep growing for some reason. And what happens with that is he's in office. He bombs Syria. I'm like, oh, he's another Shabbos Goy. I can't support him anymore. So I got off the Trump train, and that kind of broke my heart as well. But again, I'm always like, okay, well then who made Trump do this? The Jews made him do it, right? So it's going back to the Jews. So I'm kind of pulling away from the Jews and going back to the Jews. So I'm doing that. And then I start just going on my own. So I had a group called the National Youth Front in 2015. It was just a pro-white group to stop immigration because the Great Replacement was my main driver. We would go to college campuses and say, this teacher is anti-white. Now there are classes called the problem of whiteness. I think you would agree that's terrible. And there are people like Seda Grundy at Boston University said, whites are a problem population. So I go to Boston University with my crew and just plaster anti-white, Sieta Grundy. I got banned from Boston University. We did it at ASU. We did it at Rutgers, So I was known for that. That was like a 9-month thing I did as the chairman. My wife got pregnant before that, so my child was going to be born. So I stepped down. And then going on my own again, then I did the Trump train thing was after that. But after the Trump thing, I was like, what do I do now? So I went on my own again. And then this other group came along, A New Frontier, tried that, didn't work. I said, I can't work with people anymore. It doesn't work anymore. And by that time, it was 2020. So COVID came and everyone got banned off everything, including me. So I'm like, you know what? It's over. What can I do? So at the time, my name was Angelo John Gage. That's what my name was for my whole life. And I said, you know what? I tried to change the world. It's not working. Let me get the hell out of here. So I've already been here before, Jeremy. But when I gave up on this and said, let me change my name legally and start over, I don't want this to haunt me. Then came the Russia-Ukraine war. I'm like, I got to say something. I can't though. I said I would stop. Elon buys Twitter. I sign on as Lucas Gage. I make one video on Russia-Ukraine. Guys, we shouldn't be at war. They're using the Ukrainians. Goes viral. Gets picked up by Clayton Morris from Redacted. Millions of people see it. I'm sucked back into the situation. But at that time, I said to the Jewish people, look, I'm out of here, whatever. They're like, why are you back? Are you still blaming Jews? I'm like, no, it's got to be Zionist or communist. I was trying to be like, be more nuanced with this. But then I got sucked back into everything slowly. And then October 7th, and then it just went overboard. So,
well, this is one of the criticisms of your current move is that people say, well, we've seen you go through this before.
Yes.
You've said that you were leaving this all behind. You got sucked right back into it. Is it fair for people to be skeptical of this conversion now? Conversion is not quite the right word, but this transformation now.
Well, the thing is, throughout that time, it was like recalibrated. I never stopped blaming the Jews. I just said, listen, it's our fault too. It takes two to tango. I've always had that message. It's still my message right now. It does take two to tango. But I didn't go to the extreme. I've never called myself an anti-Semite until a few years ago. And I owned the word and I wanted to own it because I said, look, don't be afraid of the word. But I also truly became one. Because any other time you'd ask me, are you an anti-Semite? I say, no, I don't hate all Jews. And I don't hate all Jews. And I never have hated all Jews. But then I became more, it's like, no, it is all Jews. So like even good Jews. Oh, well, that doctor is being nice because he's protecting the other Jews. Like that kind of flat earth kind of thinking, no matter what, it's the Jews. So I became that low IQ anti-Semite, which is also, it's all the Jews. There's not even any nuance. No one's good. So that's my low IQ anti-Semitism was the theatrics, right? The flag cutting, the Talmud stuff, the screaming, which again, people wanted that, Jeremy. Like they felt like when you're seeing what's coming out of Gaza, it's like someone's got to say something. And I was giving them that. I made a video on Aaron Bushnell. That went viral all the way to Turkey, Russia Today, Boom Boom Tel Aviv. That joke song became an anthem of resistance. I didn't know that was going to happen. Billions across the world playing it. And I'm like, what's going on with this? So like people liked my approach, but who though? Like these people who don't like our country, America, they hate it. And I was audience captured by this kind of people that just wanted this rage against Israel. Right. And I'm not Mr. Pro-Israel. I'm not saying I'm pro or against or anything like that. But at that time, I was like, oh, my God, it's Israel no matter what. It's all the Jews. And I'm going to go all in. And then the swattings occurred. Right. This was in July 4th, 2004. I'm sorry. Yeah, 2024. And that's where like I went overboard, Jeremy. And people give me some slack. They're like, yeah, his family's under attack. I do have the PTSD. And I just went crazy with everything.
So almost everything you've said, one of the common themes seems to be that war triggers whatever this is in you.
Yes.
That I think you sort of skipped over this a little bit in the way you told it. I want to make sure people understand. Mm-hmm. After you watched The Towers, you enlisted in the Marine Corps.
That's right.
And you served the country.
Yes.
Were you deployed in the war?
Yes, twice. So
Afghanistan?
No, so I went to Iraq in 2003. So I totally skipped this. I'm sorry. I was so fast in my head.
Well, you know your story.
Yeah.
The rest of us don't.
Yeah. So after the towers fell, I was 17 at the time. I sought the recruiter. I said, I want to join the Marine Corps. Well, you can't, you're 17. What you can do is join the delayed entry program, which you go hang out with them every Saturday, you run laps, you do pull-ups, learn about the Marine Corps. And that takes away one of your reserve years. So I signed up 4 years and then 4 years reserve, they take one away. So you have 3 left. I'm like, okay, fine. So the second I turned 18 was May 18th, 2002, right? Within days after high school ended, right to boot camp. So there was no summer with my buddies one last time, okay? Right to boot camp, South Carolina, it's Parris Island, and then 3 months of training. I got out, I think it was September, got home on leave for a month. Then I went to Marine Corps combat training because I wasn't an infantryman, but I was a combat engineer who supports the infantrymen. And I went to engineer school. And then I got to the fleet, which is like the unit, the whole Marine Corps, they call it the fleet. And February 14th, deployed to Kuwait. And then in March, we went to Iraq. We crossed over physically. We drove over. And that was 2003. So I did that for 5 months. That was the invasion. My unit came in day 3. So already I saw the destruction from the Air Force, people putting up their white flags, completely obliterated. Our military power was incredible. And I say that in a horrible way. It's just the power that we have. The Iraqis had no chance whatsoever. So I'm going through as an 18-year-old at the time. I'm on the 240 gun. I had a earpiece in. I remember our call sign was microchip at the time, microchip. And I'm doing the call sign and everything. And I'm looking at this terrain. I'm like, my God, everything's gone. Like, where is everyone? Where's the war, And my mission as a combat engineer was to build this medium girder bridge over Saddam Canal, which was blown up. And it's basically kind of like Lego pieces, and it's very big, and you put them all together with a team of Marines, and you launch the bridge over the gap. So that was our main mission. So my first tour was just going on highways until we got to our mission, sleeping on the ground, going to the bathroom in a hole, very, very like dirty. I didn't take a shower for a month. I had like my goggles, they crusted my face. My camis were like concrete because of the sand and the sweat. We were also in mop gear. That was like the chemical weapons gear. So I had boots, then I had rubber boots over my boots. So my boots were sweating through. The conditions were terrible, but we got used to it. And so that was my first tour. And that was 5 months. Then I got back. Then, come back home. The next year, literally on February 14th, Valentine's Day again, back to the same situation, Kuwait, and then back to Iraq. This time, Al-Assad Air Base. Now we have the country under our control. So we have an Al-Assad Air Base, and we have a gym 24 hours. We have PX. We have food that's even better than the food at Camp June, North Carolina, which I was stationed, by the way. I don't know how it is. And that point, we had to do more like humanitarian missions. So I worked with EOD, explosive ordnance disposal. These are the guys that blow up IEDs on the side. Or we took out a whole cache of weapons. We did mine sweeping. What else? Convoy security every time. So in my first tour, we saw a lot of things happen to me. Like, for example, my Humvee, an IED went off on the Humvee, but it missed. It went, psh. We're like, what was that? But it didn't explode, thank God. Otherwise, I might not be here. I did see people die in front of me. Marines were hit by mortars. We had some fire coming in. And the second tour, our base was getting hit by mortars. So we had indirect fire coming from there. Some of my friends, we ran over some landmines. They'd survived, thank God. So imagine a 7-ton truck running over a tank mine and the entire front just spins like this. And my buddy's in there. He got some ear damage, but he survived. So none of my friends died in my unit, but I saw other Marines from other units die in front of me. And of course, civilians were dead too. So the whole experience as a 18 and then 19-year-old was absolutely traumatic to me, just to seeing the firepower that we have and the destruction that we unleashed on these people that had no chance whatsoever to even beat us. I mean, there were stories of like entire battalions surrendering to us, like completely, we give up. They didn't want to fight. They had no chance. So that was my experience as a Marine. And of course, experiencing that, you're going to have some PTSD. I don't know one guy who got out of the war without it. You don't come back normal in seeing that as a young boy, a young man. And so that was that phase that I always said, I want to know. When I got out in 2006, I learned later that the weapons of mass destruction weren't there. So I'm like, my government lied to me. So I've always had a vendetta. Who sent me to this damn war, right? And that's why I was like, it's the neocons and there's a lot of Jewish. You understand where the logic comes from?
I do understand where the logic comes from, but I'm always sort of interested in how people get to some of the leaps that they make. Mm-hmm. So we find out that there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. First of all, there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. There were chemical weapons in Iraq. There were not nuclear weapons in Iraq, but also we knew that they didn't have nuclear weapons in Iraq. We thought that they had a nuclear program in Iraq. We thought that they had mobile centrifuges and that they had an advanced nuclear pre-weapon stage nuclear program. How do you get from we were wrong to I was lied to? And how do you get from we were wrong to I was lied to I need revenge for having been lied to?
Well, yeah, so I concluded that we were lied to because when Bush was like, well, they're not here and they're not there, and reports were saying that we didn't find any of these weapons of mass destruction. I mean, you're mentioning the chemical weapons. Well, we believed he had them because we had gas masks in my whole tour, right? I think Bush was pushing nuclear weapons. I believe that's what he was trying to
He was
argue.
pushing the idea that they had a nuclear program.
Yeah.
He certainly never, if he believed they had nuclear weapons, it would have been much harder to have ever invaded Iraq.
Maybe wouldn't have invaded.
Maybe wouldn't have invaded, right?
But at the time, I was like, well, then if that's the case, why did they make it seem like that? So I was just angry at that entire argument. And then the neoconservatives, most of whom are Jewish at the time, Krauthammer, you have Scuba Libby, you have Wolfowitz, et cetera. Of course, you have Gentiles, right? We don't pick on them because we don't see them, right? Once you become an anti-Semite, it's always the Jews no matter what. But I saw this pattern. I'm like, okay, well, if they lied to me about this, what else have been lied to? And that's where the whole logic kept getting worse and going into the deeper rabbit hole.
What do you think about the Iraq war today?
I don't think we should have gone in there at all. I think it was a mistake, obviously. And I don't want to have any wars, actually. I don't want to be involved in Iran. I'm an anti-war guy. Now, that might be naive, perhaps, and I could say that, because now that I see how more complicated the world is, because here's the thing, Jeremy, all this stuff that I learned over the last 14 years, it makes the world very simple.
Yeah.
It's just this one group, you take care of this group, everything goes away. No, actually, it's much more complicated than that. And there are people that are corrupt that are not in that group, and they have interests too. And other countries have interests, and everybody wants a piece of America, right? So there's a lot of special interests, and they're all competing for us. And now I see, okay, well, it's funny. My driver yesterday was from Venezuela. I said to him, hey, this Maduro guy, is it true he's bad? He's, oh yeah, it's very bad. I'm like, really? So he's like, very corrupt. I'm like, so what Trump did was good? He goes, yes. I'm like, that's not what I'm hearing from my circles. Like, I'm hearing that Trump is evil and he shouldn't have done that. It's sovereignty. This guy, he left Venezuela and now he drives a car around to pick people at the airport. And he's telling me that it was a good thing. Not necessarily kidnapping Maduro, but he's not a good person. I'm hearing from like this third world Duganist type people, like these Russia people. They're saying, no, America is doing this. So do you see, we're getting pulled from everywhere. It's not just the Jews. So I'm awakening to this situation.
Sure.
And that's why I got audience captured, you see?
I want to stay just for a little bit at the beginning.
Sure,
Bill.
yeah, absolutely.
Which it seems to me the beginning is your service in Iraq.
Yes, that's the trigger.
How far back did you take your, to believe we were, listen, governments engage in propaganda campaigns. Yeah. Just full stop. When governments need the consent of the governed, which even totalitarian governments to some extent want some sort of buy-in from their people in certain kinds of moments, not always, but in certain kinds of moments. So propaganda is always a function of the state. But there's a difference between saying that we were sort of propagandized about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and saying we were lied to about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. And I suppose I'm curious, if we go back in time to your getting out of the Marine Corps, you've served, you've done two deployments into the war. You've come to the belief that you were sent there for nefarious reasons. You've come to the conclusion that you were lied to in order to get you to be there. Did you extend that lie all the way backward to 9/11 itself?
Oh yeah, of course. It all goes back to all that. Now, also in Iraq, they were trying to tie him to 9/11. That was another thing. The yellow cake, the anthrax attack. So there were things I think that were completely fabricated. If I could be wrong about that, but I'm just saying when I looked into it, the anthrax, he was involved in 9/11. I think Bush was trying to get us there to even make sure that we get in there. But yeah, so 9/11, of course, I never looked at the towers collapse ever again after they collapsed on television. A friend of mine, my roommate at the time, I was still in the Marine Corps, I had 6 months left. He gets a video, Loose Change. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you heard of that and saw it. I never saw the towers collapse again. Here I see the towers. They're like, look at these squibs and look how fast they fall. I'm like, oh yeah. And they said they were demolished. I'm like, maybe they were. Oh my God, they were. Well, who blew them up? It had to be an inside job. You see, this is where it starts like, oh, now 9/11's an inside job. So 9/11, then you go back to that report, what do you call it? The Project for New PNAC, the Project for New American Century. They're like, if we only had another 9/11, we can do this stuff that we need to do. And then we have one a year later. And it's like, well, that's kind of a coincidence. So you see how that all adds up in my mind. And
yeah.
So,
The human mind looks for patterns
Yes.
and establishes patterns where patterns don't exist. I think a lot about, and I've told this story before, but I think about my friend Andrew Breitbart. Andrew Breitbart founded Breitbart.com. He used to be one of the main contributors to the Drudge Report back in sort of the heyday of the Drudge Report. And he was an iconoclast, truly like an American original. Andrew went around telling everyone that on April 1st, that he had a story that was going to bring down the president of the United States. The president at the time was Barack Obama. And Andrew had a loud platform at the time. So he would go on Fox News and say, I got this story. It's coming up on April 1st. I'm going to bring down the president of the United States. He would go on talk radio. I got this story. It's going to come out on April 1st. It's going to bring down the president of the United States. On March 31st, Andrew Breitbart, in a dark parking lot with no witnesses, drops dead of a heart attack. Okay. So in the Tea Party movement of the time, so many people immediately believed that Andrew Breitbart was murdered by Barack Obama. And it's easy to understand why. Guy says, I've got news that's going to I've got a story that's going to bring down Barack Obama, the president of the United States. Literally hours before the day he says he's going to do it, he drops in a parking lot with no witnesses. It's very hard, especially in the trauma of this larger-than-life figure, which is what Andrew was. He was like a Charlie Kirkian type, larger-than-life, 40 or something. I mean, still young, drops dead. Very easy to understand why people immediately create a narrative around that. But there's a lot of information that people don't have, like that those of us who knew Andrew well, who were friends with Andrew knew. Like we knew that Andrew was chaotic. His mind was chaotic. I had actually sat him down and had a kind of, with a friend of mine named Bill Whittle. We'd taken him to a ribs place in Burbank earlier that year and told him, hey, Andrew, we're really worried about you, buddy. Twitter was fairly novel back then. Andrew would stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning fighting with anonymous accounts on Twitter. Now, everybody does that now. Nobody did that back then except Andrew Breitbart. We saw his health sort of deteriorate. We saw his relationship even with his family start to come under tension because he was working so hard and he was so consumed by the fight, so consumed by both launching a business, the normal day-to-day fight of politics, but also getting really absorbed into the comments on social media and all that, a proto version of what that is now. And I said, I'm really worried about you, dude. I'm just worried that you're going to destroy your family, you're going to destroy your marriage, you're going to destroy your life, you're going to die of a heart attack. This is honest to God the truth. 1 day later, Andrew calls me from the hospital. He says, hey, Boring, what are you doing? I said, I'm driving down Ventura. What are you doing? He goes, you're not going to believe where I am, man. I knew where he was because I'd already gotten the call from somebody else. I said, yeah, I hear you're in the hospital. He goes, yeah, it's not lost on me that you prophesied this. Like you spoke prophecy. And I said, yeah, well, have you learned anything? He goes, yeah, my doctor says I've got to eat better. I was like, no, Andrew. Yes, Andrew, but no, Andrew. That's not the takeaway. My point being, Andrew had a coronary event earlier in the year.
Yeah.
But I know another thing, and I'm not special. I'm not even one of his closest friends by any stretch of the imagination. There are people who are much closer to Andrew than I am, who had much more visibility, but they only have more confidence in what happened, not less. I knew the story.
Yeah.
I know the story that was going to bring down the president of the United States. Do you know what it was?
No.
It doesn't matter. It wasn't a big story. Right. It was a story about a video of him saying some things in college with this professor. The story actually wound up coming out. I barely remember it. Even at the time, I was like, I mean, it's a good get. You got the footage, but this isn't going to bring down the president of the United States. But Andrew was kind of like Donald Trump. I mean, in many ways, he was not like Donald Trump, but in certain ways, in that he was a true showman. This was like the 20th story that Andrew had that was going to bring down the president of the United States. Every new story that he was about to break was going to bring down the president of the United States because he was a salesman. And he was a headline writer, and he was full of energy. And he believed, in some ways he believed it, right? Because you pour yourself into work, and so you have to believe in your work, of course. But also, he was about to launch his new website on April 1st with this story. So he wanted it to be a big story. So when you put all of that together, you're like, well, there's an unbelievable set of coincidences here.
Yeah.
No question. But when my phone rang at 5 a.m. on April 1st, woke me up, and I looked over at the caller ID and saw that Ben Shapiro was calling me at 5 in the morning, my very first thought was, Andrew Breitbart's dead.
Yeah.
Because there was no reason why Ben would be Ben worked for Breitbart at the time. I thought, why on earth would Ben wake me up at 5 in the morning unless it's tragedy? What would be the most obvious tragedy? The most obvious possible tragedy at that time, knowing everything I knew, was that Andrew Breitbart would have died of a heart attack. And so for me, I had too much information for that conspiracy theory to grab hold. Had I not been intimately familiar with all of those details, I might very well have seen the pattern that other people saw, because the truth of how the world works is that the world is more robust than we think it is.
That's correct.
The systems in the world are more robust than we think they are. People want to blow up the Twin Towers every day. People hate America. It's a big country. It's a rich country. It's the #1 country. Everybody hates #1. There's a billion people in the Middle East who don't, or Muslims around the world who don't like us or whatever. And there's people in third world countries who are envious of us. And we have geopolitical rivals like Russia and China. Lots of people want to do us damage. But by and large, the systems hold. As it turns out, it's not that easy to blow up the Twin Towers on 9/11, as happened on 9/11. It's not just that one thing goes wrong. It's all the systems go wrong. It's like you're driving down the road, you look down at your cell phone. It's a stupid thing to do. You shouldn't do it. But you hear the buzz, you look down at your cell phone, and 99.99% of the time, you don't have a wreck as a result of that, because the system is robust, because other drivers are paying attention, because the roads run basically straight and there's painted lines, because you know the feel of the road, you know the feel of your hand turning on the road, because most of the time you're not going through an intersection. And so the vast majority of the time, one major thing went wrong, and one major thing going wrong isn't enough to end in disaster. And so there's always room for conspiracy when tragedy happens, because it takes a confluence of disasters. It's a confluence of things going wrong. It's things that any one of which, the odds of one of those things going wrong are low, and the odds of like 4 or 5 of them all going wrong at the same time are like astronomical. And yet, in the complexity of the world in which we live, what I would say as a Christian is a fallen world, and what I think you would agree as an atheist is certainly a world of imperfection, imperfect humans operating on limited information. Every now and then, everything goes wrong.
Yeah.
And when everything goes wrong, disaster happens. And this is true anytime there's like a plane crash, where it's almost never one thing. It's almost always like
multiple failure points.
Which leaves room for conspiracy, because, and this is my view, if I were to go back in time and talk to Angelo John Gage in 2006 or whatever we're talking about, who's starting to analyze these events. If I could go back and give you that one piece of wisdom, it would only be, we want order.
Yes.
When we look into these chaotic moments, we want there to be order behind them. But to actually do on purpose what only a confluence of disastrous accidents can actually allow to happen requires a kind of omniscience and omnipotence on the part of the actor that doesn't exist.
That's right.
I know people who were in the Bush administration, and they were just people. And I know people who were, in the Trump administration, and they're just people. And you think, well, the president knows everything. The president doesn't know everything. Nobody knows everything. You think, well, that information certainly would have gotten to him. Why? Imagine all the information that's coming to him. You go, well, our FBI was watching these guys. How would they not know? Our FBI is watching thousands of people across thousands of cases, and there's probably 100 of them at any time that if everything is true, that would be a 9/11 style event. But 99% of the time, the information's bad. So how do you prioritize? How do you know? How do broken, flawed people to believe conspiracies? In my view, to believe conspiracies is to pretend that the world that you live in, and the people who you interact with, and even you yourself, the way that you know the world works, somehow doesn't apply to some special group of people out there who somehow are smarter than you, and are better than you, and are more competent than you, and are more organized than you, and better coordinated than you, and who can actually see ahead and around corners and know exactly how things are going to play out. And as I've often said, if those people exist, they should run the place.
Yes. Yeah.
If
Well, no, what you're
15
saying.
million Jews on earth are capable of actually organizing all economics and all war and all, governing every country. Well, power to them.
Well, that's like a low IQ point. It's like you're giving omniscience. If that's the case, then you lose. Why even fight them? What are you doing? Like, if every event possible, and it's funny because people will say Jews always lie, and then they'll use a Jew like Ron Unz and say, well, look what Ron Unz, well, he must be lying too if he's a Jew. So you're not even being consistent with your own beliefs. But going back to the conspiracy stuff, excellent points, Jeremy, because look, as I said off camera before, that people want to make sense of the world. So those of us who don't understand anything, we're just regular. We don't have the intelligence that others have. We're not part of the CIA, FBI, etc. They have things they don't, and they're not even communicating. One of the things on 9/11 was there's absolute failures from all the agencies. Like, it was incompetence like never seen. And the attacks weren't that difficult to do.
Can I push back on one thing?
Sure.
It's actually incompetence like you see every day.
Right.
It's not incompetence like you never see.
Yeah.
It's just the world as you actually see it all the time.
Yeah, I don't mean like that one day everything went wrong. But if you think about the attacks themselves, no one hijacks a plane and kills themselves with the plane. So no one expected that to happen. Like, okay, follow the hijackers or wherever they want to go. They're like, we're going to these towers, right? Now, the issue is, because remember I said I used to think there was explosives in the towers. Well, I always go fact check my own beliefs. Yeah. And I realized there actually didn't have to be any explosives. And if you look into it, people say fireproof beams won't melt, right? They don't have to melt. At that temperature, I think it was like 1200 something, they started losing integrity, 50%. And you see the tower's walls sag in. And then what happens is they snap out, and then the attack happens. The collapse happens. Now, if there were explosives there, they would have been dislodged by the plane. And then how are you rigging those things? Well, the Israelis got in 2 weeks earlier. And the whole
fire may not melt steel, but it melts the little copper wires that are connecting all those squibs.
All those explosives, right. So I even had to learn that back then, even when I thought it was explosives, I fact checked again and I checked, well, actually they don't have to be explosives. And maybe the terrorists wanted to knock the towers over. That would actually have been more casual. Think about that. If they knocked them over, that's 50,000 whatever people in there, would have been worse. So I don't even think they knew they were going to collapse. There's multiple theories I've heard, laser beams. This is the crazy stuff, right? And the hologram planes. But the point is, Jeremy, you're right. People see patterns where they don't exist. Now, there are things that are happening and they make the pattern there without seeing how many times it doesn't happen. That's another thing too. So
this is the problem with the just noticing anti-Semitism.
Right.
Is that you're actually not noticing. You think that you're seeing a pattern. 9 times out of 10, the pattern that you're describing doesn't exist. It's selectively observed, not universally or consistently observed. And you're not actually noticing it, you're being shown it by other voices and influencers and people who also have interests and agendas and sometimes political agendas, or in some cases economic agendas. And it requires you to believe things about the world that aren't true, not just about the circumstance that aren't true, but about the world that are not true. And it also requires you to believe that people can understand long-term outcomes. So whenever I've interacted with 9/11 conspiracy theorists in the past, and you say, well, why? If I grant you that, okay, the government did it or the Jews did it or whatever, to what end?
Right.
And they always go to Iraq.
You have to get us into the Iraq war.
And then I always have to say, well, we didn't go to Iraq. We didn't go to Iraq for years. We went to Afghanistan.
Right.
We deployed to Afghanistan to find Osama bin Laden. We took on the Taliban. We took control of an entire country that now had to be organized and dealt with. What wound up being a 20-year occupation by America of Afghanistan. Like, how did that benefit America? How did it benefit the Jews? If we wanted to go to war in Afghanistan, we didn't need 9/11. Osama bin Laden had already bombed the USS Cole. We could have used that. A new administration came in. If Bush wanted to go to war in Afghanistan because he was just bloodthirsty and wanted to go give a gift to the military-industrial complex, he didn't need a new reason. He could have just said, well, we just finished the investigation of the Cole. It was Osama bin Laden. We're going. If we were doing it for the Jews, the state of Israel would have loved nothing more in 2001 than for us to go to war with Iran. Their number one geopolitical rival for our entire life, and really for 50 years. We never went to war with Iran in the wake of 9/11. So now you have to tell me, well, when we knocked down the towers, we knew that we would first have to go to Afghanistan, but then we knew that we would pivot and go to Iraq, and then we'd be able to, 20 years later, Donald Trump would go to war with Iran or whatever it is. It's like, well, again, then please rule me. Anyone who could see all of that from, also they had to know that any of the plans were going to work.
If they didn't fail, right. One of the planes were hitting fell in Pennsylvania. Well, I mean,
That's
General Wesley Clark did say we're going to war in 5 countries in 7 years, something like that. He did bring that up. I don't know how he knew that. If he's saying, I can't confirm he knew for a fact. He did say those
Well,
words.
I do think that there was a project in the Bush administration in the wake of 9/11 to rebuild and democratize the Middle East.
Right.
I think that was an idealistic, utopianist, deeply flawed view. And I think
the
that
nation building flaw. Yeah, you can't bring that to these people. They don't want it.
that's right. You cannot force democracy on people, but that's not to say that you can't create circumstances over time in which better government can begin to take root. We've done that. The American military has done that historically. We did it in Germany. We did it in Japan. We did it in Korea. There are reasons to have been optimistic about that if you were George W. Bush in 2001, when you're trying to decide how to respond to what's just happened, or in 2003. It's sort of like the early communists in the early part of the 20th century. Like, they didn't know yet that communism was going to kill 100 million people.
No, of course.
So you look back at them and you're like, oh, you guys were wrong. You were stupid. You had bad ideas, but you didn't know. You didn't have proof that it wasn't going to work.
Or Mao with the millions starving to death, etc.
Yeah. Okay. So you come out of the military. You're traumatized.
Yeah.
To your point, you're a teenager going to war.
Yeah.
And you begin to ask these questions about your own service, the losses that you see that we've inflicted.
Yes.
And you begin to question that. You go to a place of believing that it's deliberate, that you've been deliberately misled and sent to do this for nefarious reasons. Can you point at that time to any particular influence? Loose Change. I watched Loose Change at the same time that you did. And I've spoken before about how compelling it is. And I actually learned something while watching Loose Change. I learned something that's a lesson that I think has held up well throughout the rest of my life, which is that when I watched the towers pancaking in Loose Change, while being told that what I was seeing was a demolition, I believed it.
Yes.
Now, I didn't believe it for long. In fact, almost as soon as I looked away from the screen, I was like, well, no, I saw the planes hit the building. Like, it doesn't make sense that you could have pre-rigged demolitions and then the demolitions survived the giant explosions of the 767.
And they go from the top down.
That's right. And so then I watched it again with the volume off. And with the volume off, I saw exactly what we all actually saw on 9/11, which was the towers buckling under the trauma of the huge explosions that just occurred.
And Jeremy, they always say free fall speed. They did not fall at free fall speed.
Right.
Right. The debris fell at free fall speed, but the towers.
They pancake.
Exactly. And then Building 7 it was 25% of the base was gouged out for like hours. Yeah. And remember, the BBC reporter said it's going to collapse or is collapsing. It was still behind her because she's getting reports from the firefighters saying it's going to collapse. And we got to get these people out. That's what Larry Silverstein said. Pull it. Why would Larry Silverstein rig a building and say, yeah, we pulled it? Like he's say, pull out the people. That's what he means. And then it collapsed. And here's the thing where the conspiracy theorists don't show. The penthouse collapsed first. So they just go, no, it goes, this thing falls out on its own. And then the rest falls down. So we don't even see that in the videos. So why would they lie about that? Or maybe they don't know any better. But then you start seeing there's an industry to be made in this.
Well, but you believe it. 2006, 2007, in this time frame.
Yeah, I believe all the conspiracies.
You believe all the conspiracies?
I blame the military-industrial complex, the Bilderbergs, the Illuminati. I was watching Alex Jones, David Icke, actually. Okay. And it's funny because David Icke, I read his book, The Lion Sleeps No More. And it's like this, he writes a lot, this guy. And in the book, I learned about Rothschild Zionism. So that's where I learned about Rothschild. I'd never heard him before. And his argument is the Holocaust was a sacrifice to create Israel. So he believes the Holocaust happened, but the top Jews killed the little Jews to get Israel. That was his thesis. So I never heard Rothschild before, but I read, it was Alex Jones, it was David Icke, and all these various other people. I went through every rabbit hole you could think of, even Flat Earth, just to see what they were thinking, Not thinking much, by the way. And I believe all of this. There's something going on. It's nefarious, and it's not possible. It's incompetence. It's deliberate, and they're lying to us, and this is what they're doing. And that's why I went on this like crusade to find the truth, and eventually run into the Jews. That's how it turns into.
So I want to ask you, I hear this language a lot from people who are conspiracy minded, that they go on a journey to find the truth.
Yeah.
But they never look at, you'll have to excuse me, they never look at the truth.
Right.
They never look at reality as it is. And one of the reasons that I was at first concerned about sitting down with you is because if we're going to argue, you're not here to have an argument, you're not here to have a debate. I want to have an open, and we are having an open conversation. I want my audience to understand what you think now and what you have historically thought, because a lot of people think what you think now, and a lot of people have thought what you have historically thought. I think it's an important story that people in the world that I occupy can sometimes elide, and I don't think we should be eliding it. So, but when I talk to people who are conspiracy minded, I'm shocked by how many small details they know about the topic at hand, whatever the topic is, 9/11 or Building 7 or you name it. And it's a well-known debate tactic called the Gish Gallop, that you put so many charges on the table, so many accusations on the table, that first of all, the sheer volume of allegations itself sounds like a kind of evidence.
Yes.
Even though the two things do not flow from one another. And two, you can never knock down all of them. You talk about the moon landing and why did the flag wave? Well, you tell people why the flag wave. Well, we can't go through the Van Allen radiation belts. You tell them that we can. Well, why are there two light sources? Well, because one of the light sources is the moon. And on and on and on. And at no point do they go, well, you just told me three things that I didn't know. So I'm going to actually pause here and say that maybe my underlying assumption is wrong. No, if anything, they just... Now you're just part of it. Now you got the call. Now you're part of the conspiracy.
That's what's happening to me right now.
That's what you being on this show will not win you any new friends. That's for sure. And so what was important to me was not to get into that, because I would offer this as a reaction to it. Sometimes knowing lots and lots and lots of things causes you to miss the actual thing. So if you were to make your entire life about the study of this table, you could do it. And the more you studied this table, the more you would know. First thing that you would know is that this is a leather inlay over wood. And the next thing you would probably figure out is exactly what kind of wood this is. I don't know. I haven't spent any time studying this table, and I don't know anything about wood. You might get from there to the actual strength of the wood, why this kind of wood would be chosen over another kind of wood. You might get into structural integrity and start to study structural integrity. Eventually, you might get all the way down to the microscopic, and then even the atomic, and then even the subatomic. And by the time you got to your study of the subatomic reality of this table, you would arrive at a place where you understand that electrons and protons don't exist as matter. They're submatter. They don't have mass. They don't touch each other, and they're nowhere near each other. And so you would in fact arrive at a conclusion that is actually a kind of truth, which is that the table doesn't even exist. It's particles moving through subatomic space, never touching one another. No solid object even exists. And my hand is also not a solid object, and my hand should pass right through the table because there is no table and there is no hand. And you would have missed the fact that this table is perfectly suitable for holding up my cup of water right now. Like, in other words, the more you knew, in some ways, the less you would know. And that assumes that everything that you learned in that journey is true. But with the conspiracy-minded person, not only did they get down to the subatomic particle, but all along that path, they make leaps of logic that don't actually hold up. They make, some of their facts are skewed or selective. Their understanding of the organizer of the table, the carpenter or the tree or whatever, God himself, they make all these false assumptions. And so now they have the problem of not even, of knowing too much, even if it were true, and it isn't true. And they miss, here's the glass, here's the coaster, here's the table, it's all working great. And that's what I think about, even with where you were taken by your combination of trauma and anger and indignation about the war, that you took it to a place where you began to learn everything about everything in your quest for truth, except what's true. Because it just isn't true that Israel and the United States of America destroyed the Twin Towers on 9/11. That is not true. It's not true that we didn't go to the moon in the 60s because of the Van Allen radiation belts. And someone asked me one time, well, how did we get through the Van Allen radiation belts? I said, well, I don't know. I'm not a a physicist. Like I can't, I don't know anything about radiation. I don't know anything about trajectory, but I know we did because we did. So I know that if you say we can't go through the Van Allen radiation belt, I actually know that that is false.
Yes.
On account of we did go through the Van Allen radiation belt. You're starting from we can't, and so therefore we didn't. I'm starting from we did, and therefore we can.
Right.
I think that that is a kind of delusion that grabs a hold of people. And the delusion happens for reasons that are still somewhat mysterious to me. And maybe it's not one reason. Maybe sometimes it is a kind of trauma. In your case, it sounds like perhaps it was. Maybe it's a kind of need for order in a world that's chaotic. Obviously, I understand that. Human beings are constantly looking for order in the very frightening chaos of the world in which we live. I suspect that sometimes it's for community. I think that sometimes it's social proof that we fall in with people and naturally we begin to think what the people around us think. But what I'm certain of is that it's a kind of, it may be for social reasons, but the thought itself is an antisocial thought. Because you have throughout your last 14 years removed yourself from a certain part of society.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the part of society that holds the water up.
The normies. See, that's what happens. So when you get to this, so going back to the truth seeking, you get addicted to seeking truth. So
right.
You keep getting more and more. You keep adding to the truth bag, and then, well, what's even true then, right? Like you said, now you're talking about aliens from the Galactic Federation who are saving Trump and and in QAnon. Let me look at QAnon. Every drop. So a lot of this stuff's getting more and more. It's getting worse because more people are joining in on it, and it's more acceptable to be that way. Honestly. Now, going back to 9/11 and everything else, when you said the Israelis and America didn't do it, well, you think that. It's very possible they were involved in a way. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying epistemically, we're all limited. We're not omniscient. So
Certainly.
Maybe Mossad had something to do, maybe the FSB, maybe all three of them, maybe they're all rogue, maybe none of them had anything to do with it. So I've learned to just stop caring about how, who or what, like any topic at this point. I'm more humble now, Jeremy. Coming out of this, the other side, I'm like, maybe I am wrong about that, but it doesn't affect me because I'm the kind of person, as you could see, I'm willing to correct myself publicly, even to my detriment, and to an embarrassment, if that's the case.
Well, listen, it's certainly true that we don't know that Israel didn't bring down the Twin Towers. Okay, to your point, no one can know anything. But to even have a conversation about Israel bringing down the Twin Towers, you have to first get past all of the obvious things that we do know.
Right.
Like, for example, that 767s slammed into the side of the building and exploded. We can see on camera Mohammed Atta get on one of the planes. We can see the hijackers.
They warned us in August. The Israelis gave us a warning.
They told us what was going to happen.
Right.
And so, I don't know that the Japanese didn't bring down the Twin Towers, but you never hear anybody raise that as a prospect. But I suppose on a sort of
I'm saying epistemically, just to be.
Yes. Yeah, but to my point, to your point, on an epistemic level, I don't know that Japan didn't do it.
Right.
I don't know
aliens,
or that aliens didn't do it. Yeah, but I have no reason.
Right. I get
to start there with my thinking.
Yes.
You have to get past all the things that we do know to arrive at that, and the conspiracy-minded person skips right past all the things that we do know, and gets to the thing that, okay, I'll grant you that there's a non-zero chance that Israel or South Korea,
I'll give you this, Jeremy,
or the Vietnamese brought down the
I
Twin
learned
Towers.
just last week, Dancing Israelis.
Yeah.
I looked into it. Someone sent me an article debunking all the main arguments made by the conspiracy world about this. They were just kids who used to be in the IDF making cash money in New York. And now the company was like a scam company. That's why the guy disappeared, not because he did something. They're just there. They're documenting the event. Yeah, everyone was taking pictures that day. Why that specific area? There's no importance to it. Everyone was looking at the towers. People were recording it. Are they all Mossad agents? So that's one of the biggest arguments, is that Israel knew because of the Dancing Israelis. But when you look into the Dancing Israelis, there's nothing there actually. So that's one of my biggest reasons that I'm like, my God, is this even like what I thought it was? You see what I mean?
Where your experience and my experience have diverged so greatly is that I didn't need to look into the Dancing Israelis.
Right.
Because I saw the dancing and cheering Palestinians in their thousands, not 6 guys in a box truck or whatever. But the very evening of 9/11 when they were showing reactions from around the world. They cut to footage out of Gaza of Palestinians praising Allah, dancing in the streets, cheering. And listen, the Palestinians didn't do it either. My
Right.
point just being the idea that somebody has a reaction to this thing, a terrible reaction,
Right.
doesn't in any way implicate them as having done it.
Well, I'm saying that narrative is not even true.
And to your point, it's not even true. There are no
Right. So
dancing
I learned just 2 weeks ago or a week ago that, oh my God, even this main argument that gives the forewarning, forget they warned us, vaguely warned us, but again, it's like, okay, well, that story is no good. So what else do you got? Oh, well, this guy, Larry Silverstein, or that thing, and maybe someone knew something, but, or here's one, no Jews died on 9/11. That's not true. About 400 died, 10% of the casualties. So they didn't get the call. We were all told they got the call. No one showed up. So here's what happens though in these circles too. You trust someone. Let's say it's me. I promote something. You believe, oh, Lucas is a great guy. He doesn't lie. I promote something I don't know is false, is not true. So for example, there's these memes about the Talmud. There's one that says Libra David. There is no Libra David in the Talmud. There's quotes about Bibi saying, we're going to milk America and make it. Where did he say that? Where's the quote? It doesn't say when he said it. Remember when Bibi died for a week? I was calling that out. I started saying, guys, you can't be, it's not AI. He's right. Now he's outside. No, the outside's fake. So like I started seeing these people, even in the resistance movement, promoting videos that aren't real, and then not saying my bad, he's still alive, I was duped or whatever, or an airstrike that never happened. I saw last week some guy said, look at all these Palestinians going to get this food, then they're gonna get bombed. I'm waiting, no bomb. And the video cuts off. I'm like, you can't be doing that. You can't lie like that. Now you lose credibility. So I started seeing people promote this stuff that's not true. And that hurts the resistance right there. Those people there, but then you bring it out, now I'm a Zionist. You see how that works? But yeah, going back to your point though, about endless truth seeking, keep adding more that you don't even know is real anymore. You miss the reality of the world. And then even if it were true, you can't confirm it. You see what I mean? We can make propositions and I can say, well, I think it's really a belief. So right. Unless we literally have Mr. Beast build the towers up and fly planes and try to demolish them or whatever, we won't know for certain. But you got to go back to, is it likely the case or not? And when you have a specific worldview and you're blaming some group, whether it be Jews or whoever else, it's like flat earth. You've already decided the earth is flat. So any evidence that shows the earth is not flat has to be fake. It has to be CGI. If Tyler Robinson admits doing it, right? We were talking about Tyler Robinson earlier, Charlie Kirk. Even if he says, I did it, even if it's perfect DNA, camera, everything, irrefutable, the Jews did it. We are post-receipts, Jeremy. We're a post-truth. I don't know where we are right now. And that's why I decided, okay, you know what? If I'm walking away from this, the least I can do is correct myself publicly. The least I can do is let the Jewish community next to me in Lakewood, who thought I was going to kill them, know, hey, I'm not that guy. I lost my mind. I went overboard. I called you names, demons, and I dehumanized people I never met. That was wrong to do. At least I can do that. And hopefully people see my example, like, okay, this guy was all in, put his family at risk. What happened to him? Well, of course, Mossad got him. You see, that's the problem, Jeremy. So even me trying to be doing the righteous thing, still going to be interpreted as being a traitor. And after this show, oh my God, it's over. So you see, it's incredible how things have become. And that's why it's like, this is how bad it's getting. And I want your audience to know that. Someone like me who was this fanatic anti-Semite, annoying, a global menace in a sense, right? Even I can correct myself, but not many people are like me, Jeremy.
So you come through the war, you come through 9/11, you come through, looking into the Illuminati and the lizard people.
Yeah.
You arrive at anti-Semitism.
Yes.
White nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a fair?
Well, I always thought that America should just have like living spaces for everybody. Like just don't force diversity where they don't want it. So not like we don't have to ship anyone back to different countries. We don't have to expel anyone. Just let everyone live where they want. Don't force integration. Don't force DEI. Let people organically organize. I think that's fair to say. And that's what I even pushed that in 2015. So I was never like a white national. We got to ship everyone to Africa or something like that, which is preposterous. It was always, okay, what do we got? Okay, let's just not force each other to live among each other. It's okay. That's what I think.
That brings you into a world where you're interacting with a I mean, you were a very prominent voice in your own right in this, but you're interacting with all the other prominent voices from, you've mentioned Jake Shields, you've mentioned
Dan Bilzerian,
Stu Peters.
All these people. Yeah.
Okay. You say that today you want your Jewish neighbors to know that they were afraid of you. You want them to know.
Yeah, I met them at the restaurant. They were like, we were like, what are you going to do? And because again, former Marine, what was I saying? I'm going to go all in. I'm going to die for my people. You'll have to shoot me dead. What does that mean?
Slay the demons.
Yeah, slay. Well, slay that was in a space. So that was a little unfair because I meant slay the demons. Like this guy came into a space and he was so arrogant. Like, you got to slay these demons. That's like metaphor. But yeah, okay. I didn't mean to kill Jews. But slaying is like, if I say, Jeremy, I'm going to kick your ass in basketball tomorrow. I'm not literally going to kick your butt, or I'm going to kill you in tennis. I'm not going to literally, that's what it was. But you get the clip and it's too late. And Elon's like, okay, I'm not dealing with this guy. But yeah, my rhetoric, again, the fact it could be interpreted that way, the fact I'm saying it to people who live next to me, and I'm not thinking about it. When I met Jake Turks, he's like, did you think about it? I said, no, actually, I was so mad. I didn't even care what came out of me. You see what I mean?
When you interacted with people in that world, as you have for a decade and a half, you used violent rhetoric, but you say that you didn't intend violence. Do you think that other people in that world do intend violence?
Well, I don't think I really did use violent rhetoric. Like, I didn't say we should kill anyone. Like my verbiage was, I've always been against violence. I've said I'm not a violent person, but I guess you could say that what I'm saying could maybe convince someone to be violent. I don't know. I mean, is that what you interpret it as? Like, did you think I was being violent? I don't think I was kill people and slay demons, you could say. But I said, as a matter, I explained in the next sentence, all you need to do is call them out, expose them. I didn't say, go get your AK-47. That was clipped out. So unfortunately, but I don't think I used violent rhetoric, but what I did to the flag and burnt, you could say that's violent.
For people who don't know, you took a sword and cut through a...
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I was sent these items when I was getting swatted, and to me, it was like a form of intimidation. I said, okay, you know what? You want to send me these things? I'm going to destroy them. And I did a theatrical thing so I could drop red pills. I knew it was going to go viral. So Israel did 9/11, JFK, and Palestine, USS Liberty. And then the Talmud, I just destroyed it. It wasn't a real Talmud because the real Talmud's like a lot of books. It's thousands of dollars. So the Jewish community wasn't really offended by that because it wasn't the real Talmud. But even so, I was like, I'm not going to be intimidated. Now, I tell people, imagine that was a Quran, what would have happened? See, this is when I realized that the way the Jewish community acted toward me, anyone else would act that way. Blacks, Muslims. So if I burned a Quran and then I said, I cut a Palestinian flag and I made a song called Boom Boom Palestine, what do you think would have happened? I would have got death threats from Muslims, no question. Maybe I would have got hurt. Jews aren't typically they don't go violent and beat you up. What if I was anti-black? They probably wouldn't death threats too. So I'm like, okay, I'm really mad at this community for acting a way that they're reacting toward me in a way that I was acting toward them, but it's anonymous people. It's not like actual figures like me doing. It's not like some rabbi said it, you know what I mean? Some prominent figure. So these are anons in the internet doing it.
So one thing I think is interesting about the timeline of the story, is it sounds like you started to break ranks with the broader movement. Because of the behavior of the people, not because of the quality of the ideas. Stu Peters steals a bunch of money.
It was the big, yes. At first, it was the behavior. Like, okay, you guys are not even really anti-Semites. You have a Jewish manager. You're selling Jewish products. Like, I'm the real anti-Semite. You guys are, not even real. And then later on, as everything kept collapsing little by little with the Charlie Kirk thing, I'm like, this is out of control. So when I concluded that, okay, these people around me are wrong, am I wrong? See, now I got to fact check myself. And that's why I started researching the whole dancing Israelis again and other things. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm a hypocrite because why am I blaming the Jews for anything? Is it genetic determinism? Are they always this way, right? Throughout history, they've always been called these things and every people wrote the same thing about them, etc. I'm like, but wait a minute, there is no trait, there's no action that Jews do that other people don't do. Jews did not invent stealing or pedophilia or killing or anything else. They didn't invent lying. Other people do it. In fact, the people I worked with were lying and stealing and scamming. So what am I fighting these people for? Oh, I just want the bad ones. Well, wait, I got bad people here. So there was a contradiction in my own thought process, policing my side, because one of the biggest arguments against the Jews, and I know it's when I say the Jews, I don't mean all Jews, of course, but anything Jewish, is that they don't police their own. Like, if only we can get the bad ones, we'll be okay. But they have a sensitivity to it. They might keep it in the community, and we can't get to them. And so therefore, like if we talk about Soros or Bankman-Fried, it's anti-Semitism rather than, hey, that's just a bad person who needs to go to jail. But Bankman-Fried did go to jail, and Epstein is dead, and Ghislaine is in jail, you see? So there is justice going on. But you're saying, no, they just let them burn because the other ones are getting away. And so I'm seeing hypocrisy in people, and then I see it in my own belief that, wait a minute, I'm presenting the Jews in a way that is impossible for them to ever be completely exonerated from anything. They could do no good. And that's when I realized I've lost it. So I corrected myself. And when I did that, it was game over for me, because I told everyone, hey, wait a minute, hold on. We're not looking at it the right way. There's more nuance of the world. Oh, wait, now you're Israel, now you're Jewish. So when I met Jake Turks, he's like, hey, would you like to talk to me? I said, I don't know, I'm done, but I don't want to get involved. And I said, no, I have to talk to him. I can't just say I'm done and just walk away from this. I have to do what's right, because I'm a man of my word. So I did talk to him, and we discussed everything. There was not a single stone left unturned. Everything we just spoke here and more. And he was completely okay with it. He didn't get offended by anything. And my biggest concern to him was, like I said, Jake, there more dumb people are getting involved in this, and it's going to get dangerous because stupid people are dangerous. I, thank God, was not crazy enough to hurt someone. I don't have a gun because of the PTSD. I never would ever hurt anyone, but no one knows that about me. Former Marine, things I said. So when I met the Jewish people at the restaurant a week later, they're like, oh my God, Lucas, I called the cops because I was scared. I'm sorry. I'm like, don't apologize to me. And they say, yeah, don't worry, we're monitoring. Don't worry. So I built a rapport with the police, actually. They were very happy that I spoke to them, let them in, and talked to Colleen, this woman who is at the New Jersey Homeland of Office and Preparedness, Homeland Security and Preparedness, which is like a state version of the Homeland Security.
Right.
So she wanted to make sure everything was calm, because my rhetoric was out of control. And look, there are people you want to go back to violence, there are people that were friends of mine who had said, hey man, you got to calm it down. Like, for example, Nick was not a fan.
Nick Fuentes.
Yes, he's not a violent person. He's against all violence. And he said to me, hey, why'd you do that stuff? Why'd you burn the flag? I'm like, I don't know. Why not? He's like, wants to throw it away. He's like, yeah, you should just throw it away. So he was against it. There are a lot of people saw me like, okay, this guy's losing it. And they respected me because I was in the movement for a long time. So they didn't want to offend me. But at the same time, some of them would say, he pulled my friend Keith Woods is another one. He's like, hey, Lucas, we love you, but come on, man. Even Dan was there at one point. Hey, man, stick to the facts. So I got criticism, and guess what I did? I changed. So I'm okay with being criticized by people that are trying to help me. Why don't others change? So many people don't change, Jeremy. But no one I know in this movement in private conversations have ever actually hated Jews on a physical level or want to kill them. That I can tell you. Are there freaks out there with the swastikas who say, gee, yeah. And I've never associated with those people. In fact, they hate me too. So I pissed off every group, including the neo-Nazi types who are just antisocial freaks.
As you sit here today and you think about this new part of your life that you're in, we had lunch before the show. Mm-hmm. We've never spoken before today.
Nope.
It strikes me that you come across very sincere. You strike me as a guy who is certainly taking losses for the position that you're currently taking. I can't vouch for the authenticity of your positions. We don't have the kind of relationship where I would have any way to know one way or the other. But this has seemed like a good faith conversation, and observing you seems like you're in the middle of a good faith personal journey. I guess part of what I'm interested in is, as you stand here today, you've looked into the dancing Israelis, and you've looked into, you still have a lot of perspectives about a lot of these questions that I think are well outside of the mainstream, and perspectives which I would say I would personally find offensive. I believe people in my audience would find offensive. Um, where do you think that where does the introspection end? Or is it too early in this journey for you to say? You know, because I might say that it strikes me that there's a core moment in your life where you swerved onto this path.
Mm-hmm.
And emanating out from that moment are all of the particulars. Dancing Israelis, 9/11, WMDs, Trump bombs Syria, and that upsets you. And,
Mm-hmm.
War in Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera. We could take it all the way. You said flat earth at one point, lizard people, the Illuminati, all of it. And so you get way out here at the, there's a hub called the original thing whatever the original source of this is. You get out here and you're kind of going almost like backward the other way, symptom by symptom.
Yes.
Well, it turns out the dancing Israeli thing isn't true. Well, it turns out that fire didn't have to melt steel; it just had to
Correct.
compromise its integrity. But isn't there still this thing back here that needs to get dealt with? And do you think that it strikes me that it is likely the case that if you dealt with this, you might discover that even a lot of the things that you still are holding on to are actually part of the same sort of wave that emanates out from a root bad idea, a root trauma, or a root experience that's caused you to approach these questions in a certain way that's prevented you from seeing that the table holds up the cup.
I'm glad you brought that up. So what happened recently was I realized I'm not going to get this justice that I'm looking for. The people who engineered Iraq, if it is or not, whatever they are. At this point, I'm letting go of the war that I waged against whatever forces, whatever powers that be. So again, 23 years of this war, right? Starting with literally, and then going 5 years with any kind of conspiracy. And then the JQ specifically is 14 years. Okay. So I said, I'm finished fighting. That's what this is whatever the truth is, I let it go. It's like someone owes you money for so long, you're never going to get it back. You can't even sue the guy, he's broke. It's over. I lost the money. I lost the investment.
Got to write it off.
So I've been fighting so long, Jeremy, that it has poisoned me. See, it's not even just about the Jews are upset. I'm upset. People say hatred is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. Right. Now, I don't really hate people like a foaming dog, but it was like this, okay, I don't trust these people. I have these problems. But ultimately, it's me needing to let go of this sense of justice that I probably won't ever get. And even if I could get it, what does that even do? I end up feeling okay anyway. So why not just feel okay? And I don't know everything. Yeah. It's okay to be wrong about things. I'm okay with that.
Well, I'm not a psychologist.
Yeah.
And you and I haven't been interacting long enough that even if I were a psychologist, I don't imagine I would know enough about you to get to it. But at a very high level, it feels to me like this thing back at the center is actually a very common. I often say, I think I even said to you at lunch, the flaws of man, the sins of man, are actually very common. They're common to us all. Mm-hmm. So people's flaws rarely shock me. I might be shocked in some of the particulars, but I'm not shocked in the general, because there's nothing wrong with anybody that isn't wrong with everybody. We build structures on top of that, moral structures, self-governance, regulation, law, policy, family. We build structures to curtail the worst things that are common to us all. And sometimes somebody breaks out of that and the water runs downhill, right? But there's a very common problem in our society that affects all of us on some level, probably at the highest level it ever has, and affects, therefore, a lot of people a lot. Everybody a little and a lot of people a lot. And it's seeing oneself as a victim, seeing oneself as a victim and therefore depriving oneself of agency. And it strikes me at a high level that because of your experiences in Iraq and because of the way that you came into contact with the idea that you had been lied to, and let's say that maybe it's even possible that you were lied to. Mm-hmm. Because the thing about a victim mentality is that even if one is a victim mentality is still poison. It's probably actually the case that if one is a victim, the victim mentality is actually worse because reality reinforces the presupposition. And so whether you are in fact a victim or not, it strikes me that you felt wronged.
Yes.
And everything has emanated out of your feeling that you were wronged. And to the extent that you say you're letting go of your need for justice in the face of having been done wrong, maybe that's as good as it gets. And I certainly wouldn't try to dissuade you from that point of view. But it may also be the fact that even your view that you were wronged is itself not right. That you may very well be a victim not of design, but just a victim of reality. That the reality of the world, not a group of nefarious actors conspired to send you to Iraq for nefarious reasons, but just the reality of the world conspires at all times to undermine our confidence in our systems because our systems aren't perfect, to undermine our confidence in our leaders because our leaders aren't perfect. War is traumatic because war is you were traumatized by the war because war is traumatic, not because the war was wrong, necessarily because the war was wrong. I don't believe that the war was wrong. I certainly don't believe that the war was wrong by design. I believe that there were enormous mistakes in the war. Should we have been in Iraq at all? I don't know. I certainly know we shouldn't have disbanded the Iraqi army. I know that we should have sent a large enough force in to secure the country against the insurgency that was going to form. I know that we should have taken seriously the threat from Iran that manifested in all the IEDs that swarmed into Iraq and all the fighters that swarmed into Iraq that killed a huge percentage of our soldiers there. I also believe that we won the war in Iraq by the end of George W. Bush's tenure. The surge worked. We put down the insurgency. We had largely stabilized the country. And then Barack Obama came into office and immediately just pulled out. And the country fell back into complete chaos. ISIS rose. And then even Obama had to go back more quietly than Bush, go back and retake Fallujah and all those cities. Or, yeah, I guess, is that right? Or was it whatever? Had to go back and retake ground that had already been lost, Mosul, and win the war again. I also know that if you went to Iraq today is a far better place than Iraq was in 2002 under the Ba'athist regime. So like that in itself doesn't justify the war either, but it's only a way of saying these things are actually quite complex.
Right, yeah.
Whether or not somebody deliberately did a nefarious thing, whether or not somebody would have had the power to do that or the sophistication to have done it or the motive to have done it, those are all things where I get a little squishy. If what you want to say is the war in Iraq was a disaster. Okay, the war in Iraq was a disaster. I don't think it's not hard to argue against that. Nevertheless, seems that starts your journey. It seems that that's the thing that if that isn't true, if you were wrong about that one thing, then everything that stems out from that is colored by the original sin of that mistaken perspective. That's probably, as a guy who's not known you long, that's probably what I think. I think a lot of the ideas that you have even now that are objectionable to us normies, ideas that are objectionable, I think still stem from that same root problem. And that the reality of the world is that whatever you have to contribute, you're a father, you're a husband, you have kids, you have neighbors, you have perspectives, you have a voice, you have people who listen to you, some of whom you have probably furthered them down dark paths.
Oh yeah.
Through your own rhetoric. You have a role to play in making the world a better place. You have a constructive role to play in the world. And from my point of view, that's probably only ultimately realized in getting all the way back to whatever that first thing is and answering it with the same kind of honesty that you're now trying to answer the sort of things that emanated out from it.
Right. I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay. Let's suppose you convinced me 100% that, Lucas, no, you're wrong. We were not lied to. And it's totally, I go, oh, well, good. That's literally 1 second. I'd be called flip-flopper.
You were certainly propagandized.
Absolutely.
There's no question that you were propagandized.
I'm okay with that. Like I've learned in life that like even right now, all my audience is calling me all these things. Like I don't even care anymore, Jeremy. I'm letting go of my emotion. And by the way, emotionally charged, that center, emotionally charged. That's what drove
Saw
the
people
warrior.
die.
Right. And like I want justice no matter what. Even for Palestine, I'm not Palestinian. I'm not a Muslim. And I'm seeing these kids explode. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to say something. But you know, what can I do from here other than say something? And then now I'm a Zionist, according to these people, because I sat down. So it's like, what did I sacrifice everything for? You see? And while I'm doing that, I'm hurting my family. I mean, you know, I didn't do anything illegal doing the things I said, doing the things I did and saying the things I said, but their consequences were real, Jeremy. You know, getting swatted is illegal, but they happened to my family.
Yeah,
so it's like I put my family in danger for my beliefs. And I did so without any concern. And I said, no, I'm still going to, my wife's like, maybe you should stop. I'm never going to stop. I'm going to tell the truth. There's that truth again. Tell that truth again. Tell that truth again. And now I'm like, well, what if I'm not, like, you think I want to think these things? Like, I'd love to be like, oh, Fox is true. You know, wow, Rachel Maddow's telling the truth. Like, of course, no, I don't know of any conspiracy theorist is like, I want to be a conspiracy theorist. No, of course not. But I think what happens is they find something that seems true, maybe it is true. I mean, Jeremy, there are conspiracies out there that are true. I mean,
of course there are conspiracies.
Gulf of Tonkin didn't happen. There are things like this. But again, not everything is one. And then they come to the point where everything is one, and that's where you lose everything. So
I think the nature of a conspiracy theory is that it's when you can have a theory about a conspiracy. It becomes a conspiracy theory when it becomes unfalsifiable.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
And that's ultimately what we're talking about with all of this. It's there is no evidence that can dissuade someone who has decided we didn't land on the moon from that position.
Right. Yeah, they already made the decision. Every rocket video, everything. But you know, I want to say this though, because people should understand, and this is why I think we're censoring people and destroying their lives is counterproductive. Okay. We cannot choose our beliefs. We just are convinced of them or not. So if someone believes like the Holocaust is a certain thing or not, or we didn't do that, that's something they need to be educated. They need to be given the information that snaps them out of that belief. If you destroy their life and call them names, you're going to create another anti-Semite or create another person who thinks NASA controls like if all the flat earthers were arrested, right? Which would be really weird to do. Maybe you can't go to Antarctica, even though you can, and you can, you know, maybe there's something. What if people got arrested for 9/11? So like, I think it's counterproductive to just, okay, let's destroy this guy's life because he said something about these people. I think that person needs to be sat down, and that's why I want to build bridges. That's why I told Jake Turks and Yakov Langer, that's why I'd like to tell your audience that this cancel culture, yes, you have a right to dissociate yourself from this. If you're a Black person who owns a business and this guy's dropping M-bombs, you have every right to fire the person, and you should. But I don't think organizations with multi-millions should go around hunting people down and destroying their life without trying to at least educate them in some way. Like, let's talk with this person. And maybe that can't happen. Maybe that guy's too far gone. But someone like me, if I could show by example that even someone like me can get to this point and start wondering, maybe I'm wrong about everything that got me here, and I kind of wish that I am, actually, that would be great, you know. But again, there's already a conspiracy of me being bought off. I got the 7,000. Now I work for you. Now this is game.
I'm Jewish,
and you're right. I thought you were Jewish, and you're not. So where did that come from? Joel Berry. I thought he was Jewish. No, he's not. Right. So it's like everyone's Jewish too, by the way, including me. I get called Jew. I'm getting called a Jew, but. The reason I decided to come here and sit with you, and I didn't know it was going to happen, and neither did you. And like you said, this is the first time this has ever took place on your program, is to hopefully inspire others to think again. Fact check the people you trust, because I'm learning, and we've seen in my own circles, there are people lying for money. And when I got into this, there was no money.
Well, I want to talk about this because
sure, absolutely.
We talk about people can't choose their beliefs, and you talk about. Or I've suggested that there's a sort of root problem.
Well, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
That's.
But that's only one part of the story. Another part of the story is that this is a business. That there's a lot of economic and ego incentives.
Oh yeah.
For influencers in this niche, just like there are in every other niche. So I want to talk about that a little and get your perspective. You've written a little bit about it at your Substack. I want to start by just asking a personal question, which is. How have you supported your family economically for these 14 years?
Yeah. Well, I'm a disabled veteran, so that's most of my income comes from that. The
Okay.
PTSD. People think I just have PTSD. Like if it was just that would make no sense because then I wouldn't be able to talk and do what I do.
Yeah.
I have multiple issues. My ankle, I have other issues as well. So I have a combined rating that gives me a disability where I maintain my family like that. So all the stuff that I did in the movement was actually just me doing it regardless whether I made $1 or not extra on Rumble or donation. So I was always doing this just because it's the right thing to do.
But you've made a little money on Rumble.
Mhm.
There've been some donations. You've
Yeah.
sold some books.
Oh yeah. I never made a ton of money. Like I made what $30,000 on Rumble in 2 years. Like that's not like other people are millionaires.
Yeah.
You know, I've sold a few books. Maybe I made 20,000 in a few years. Was it even 20,000? So it's not like big money. Like there's people making millions, like of dollars. They have studios. They're nice. I didn't even have a thumbnail person. I don't have an editor. Like I didn't have an operation. It was just me.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's not like I was a showman. Like I didn't have the welcome to the show, everyone.
But there were other kinds of benefits that you got. Ego benefits, dopamine benefits. I mean, everybody
Feel like a hero and a savior.
felt like a hero and a savior. Everybody who engages on the internet, we all get something out of it,
Yeah.
even if the something isn't monetary. How much is audience capture a part of your story, and how much do you think it's part of the story of that particular movement, broadly speaking?
So my friend Adam Green, he does No More News. He said, Lucas, you need to influence your people. You're not doing that anymore. You've been audience captured. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're letting them run you. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you don't want to offend these people. Because that Christian Muslim Alliance, I'm one of the people that said, let's do it. And I'm not a Christian or a Muslim. And by the way, I'm not really an atheist. I'm like, I think the world or the universe is God. I guess that's pantheism, something like that. I don't think it's a personal entity. Let's just put it like that. But maybe that is but pantheism is a sexed up atheism. That's what Dawkins would say. But anyway, so getting back to what was my point there? I was trying to say that, so my friend said, you got audience captured. I'm like, what does that mean? What are you talking about? It's like, you're doing what your audience wants. And in a way I was, because like I noticed when I make the rants, people feel, thank you, Lucas, you're our voice. And I'm like, oh, that's good. I want these people to feel good. Now, again, I'm not being, I wasn't monetized on X anymore. I lost it. So I wasn't like, my engagement wasn't based on the money because I was demonetized. But still, the Rumble a little bit, book sales, okay. But when I help people, I feel good. So when someone's like, Lucas, you're a great voice. We love you. Iran loves you. Palestine loves you. Syria, like the Middle East loved me. Like the whole Middle East, boom, boom, television, the whole world. And I didn't make a penny off that, by the way. We would have multimillionaire. And people say, that's all you're mad about. No, it's, how do I feel about that now, by the way? Well, I'm like at first I thought the war would end with that strike on Israel. I thought when Iran hit, okay, now we can have business, we can make a deal. Didn't happen. Now I'm like, okay, I don't want anything to do with this anymore. It was like, it's too much now. So in my thing is, it made me feel like I was saving the world. As delusional as that sounds, and it is when you think about it, some guy in a computer, right? I felt like I was wronged by the government. I felt obligated, despite being, I could just disappear, Jeremy, like go live on an island and I could take my benefits as long as I hold my U.S. passport, go live in Thailand and, like a king and don't worry about it. I have children I have to bring with me. I felt obligated to speak because I can't get fired. That's why. So this guy loses a job, I cannot lose my job. Unless they pass a law in Congress to take away I don't know how they would do it, which would be crazy because every veteran will go nuts. You don't want that. So I felt obligated to tell the truth. I could have just disappeared. Like, no, I have to tell the truth. I need justice. That's what drove me. And then I'm getting feedback from my audience. And we want more, Lucas, more rants. Someone said, when are you making Boom Boom Tel Aviv 2? I said, I'm not doing it. What am I, a monkey for you? And I realized it. And here's the thing, the audience becomes parasitic. And here's another thing. When you have monetization, when you have a big audience, if you piss off your audience, guess what? You're going to lose your money. So these influencers are now they have to make their audience happy. Otherwise, they don't make the money that they want. And that's why people started going to these dumb conspiracy theories, Tataria and Jewish laser beams and things that make no sense, just because you need to go crazier to keep people going. I mean, like, look what Candace was talking about, Brigitte Macron's penis and Egyptian planes. And where is she going with that? Why are you doing that? She's a millionaire already. Why does she need more money? Other people doing this stuff. So for me, it wasn't really about the money. It was the sense of justice. And people know that because I put everything on the line and I actually lost my reach. Once Cyberwell jumped in, this is an Israeli security, a cybersecurity firm, and took down Boom Boom Tel Aviv, all my reach is gone. So my account is like 95% deboosted. So this is the opposite of a grifter, someone who continues to go no matter what. Elon took me out for 3 months, the first person to get locked out for 3 months. Then 6 months. So I'm the first person ever for 9 months. I can't even buy premium. That's the opposite of grifting. I tell people, no, this is wrong, opposite of grifting. Calling out other grifters, opposite of grifting, because then I lose their audience. I lost Stu Peters' audience. I lost Jake Shields. I can't do collabs with him or anyone else. That's the opposite. So I'm not doing it for money. Other people are. But yes, you could say that I did it because it made me feel good. Absolutely. I agree with you on that. 100%.
Yeah, it's one of the challenges of this medium. There are two major challenges for this medium. One is I love the democratization of speech, and I've been one of its great beneficiaries because when I first started coming up in media, there were not a lot of opportunities for conservative voices. There was only Fox News. Everyone else essentially boxed us out. I saw the opportunities that would be afforded by social media and built a business on it. And we earned and deployed $1 billion over 10 years. I mean, it was an unbelievable journey that we got to take. And yet, we are missing something for not having any gatekeepers in the society. You said earlier, you don't think we should cancel people. You think a far better thing would be to educate them. But you also said we're post-evidence, we're post-fact, we're post-truth, we're post-logic. Part of the reason is there are no institutions. The democratization of voices coupled with the anonymity of voices on the internet has created a world where there is no one to trust except the people with whom you form strange parasocial relationships. Those are called influencers.
Yeah.
And in that environment, I'm not actually sure how you do point people back toward truth long term. And you talk about the marketplace of ideas, and the marketplace of ideas is very important. But there's also something that we know about human beings, which is if you offer people broccoli versus M&Ms in unlimited supply, people always are going to take the M&Ms. And so is that an accurate description of a marketplace? Now, do I think we should outlaw M&Ms? No. Do I think that we should legally require that you eat broccoli? No. But I do think that there is a reason that we have government. There's a reason that we have policy. And something similar is true on the internet. I don't claim to have cracked the code of what brings a healthier rhetoric to our society. But I do know that what we have now is a particularly unhealthy one. I know that when everyone can say anything without even putting their name on it, without putting their face on it, when half the internet is bots, when foreign influence operations can hide behind that anonymity and manufacture social proof that doesn't, in ways that don't even exist, when the platforms are incentivized to drive engagement above all else.
Yes.
And so, burning the Talmud drives engagement. Cutting the Israeli flag with a sword drives engagement. Saying that the earth is flat drives engagement. Things that are novel drive engagement. Eventually, all of the internet becomes some form of pornography, some sort of sensationalism, some sort of, in other words, it appeals to whatever is the most base in us. And the way that the internet works today in particular, and by today, I mean literally 2026, the algorithms have all changed. The TikTokification of the internet is very nearly complete, where now what you choose to follow doesn't even determine what shows up on your feed. So people may not realize this. X's algorithm is open source. It means you can just look at it. You don't have to guess what it is. It's not opaque. It's completely transparent. And what we see in X's algorithm is probably indicative of what's happening in all of the algorithms. It doesn't even in your feed take into account whether or not you follow someone anymore. It only takes into account how likely you are to engage with the content. And it bases that on your behavior, not on your choices. So in the past, if you chose to follow Jeremy, that factored into how the algorithm fed you information. You've followed my account, you're going to see things from my account. Now it doesn't take that into account at all. It only takes into account how likely are you to click. Well, what that means is if you go back to 1998 Jeremy, just out of high school or whatever, sitting at a buddy's house who had cable, because I sure didn't have cable. My parents couldn't afford cable. and I'm scrubbing through the 200 channels that I've never seen before. There's all kinds of things that I'm interested in. There's documentaries that I'm interested in. There's movies I've never seen that I'm super interested in. Holy crap, there's some boobs.
Mhm.
Okay. The part of me that builds structures on top of the flesh, in Christianity you would call this the part that's indwelt by the Spirit, as opposed to the part that's only material and flesh. That part of me builds systems. I said to you at breakfast, I'm not a man who would say I would never cheat on my wife, because I know that the sins of man are common to all men. I know that any man, as my friend Andrew Clavin often says, is 2 drinks and a wink away from destroying his life. So I build systems on top of my life. I don't drink.
Mhm.
I largely don't drink. I largely don't go out. When I have meetings with female employees, I do it in a glass office. For a decade, my office at the Daily Wire was a glass office, because I think people should be able to see my interactions. I don't want to put myself in positions where I can be accused of compromising, and I don't want to put myself in positions where compromise is easy. Now, none of that's foolproof. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, as Christians believe. But those systems are meant to, by and large, keep me out of the circumstances where men fail, because any man might fail. Well, same with Jeremy going through the 200 channels on his buddy's cable box. Holy crap, boobs.
Mhm.
Nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move past that. I'm going to go watch something more fruitful. I'm going to set the presets to the things that I think I should see. The things that intersect with what I want and what I should, as opposed to the things that are only what I want and not what I should, but also not the things that I only should. Right? There's the things we want to want. Forget that. There's the things that we want. Well, forget that too. What are the things that we both want and need? That's the sweet spot in life. Okay, so I build those systems. How does that work on the internet? Well, I have unlimited access to anything, but I follow the things that I want. That's my will impacting what I'm fed. That's, yes, I would eat M&Ms all day, but I'm going to choose not to buy the M&Ms. I'm going to choose to like and follow, broccoli and steak. Now the algorithm doesn't take that into consideration at all. It only feeds me what I'm the most likely to linger on. Now it knows if I went documentary, boobs.
Go right
Nope, not going to do it. Documentary. What it remembers is you spent 6 seconds on the boobs before you found the willpower to move on. And I'm not even going to factor in the fact that you followed the documentary, or that you followed, the AMC movie channel or whatever, like the Classics movie channel. So now the part of us that has a say in what we're fed on the internet has never had less impact.
Mhm.
The part of me that has a voice in what I want to be fed has never had less impact. And the base material part of me that lingers on something that's tempting has the most power that it's ever had, which means audience capture has never been more powerful than today. And when I say never, I mean, this is a 2020, the algorithm still factored in what you follow in 2025.
Yeah.
This is brand new. People don't even understand that this is happening. And so even if you don't want to be fed all the rage bait and all the conspiracy and all of the actual pornography and rhetorical pornography that litters social media, if your eye lingers on it, even when you're just scrubbing through, you're going to start getting more and more of it. And you can't really opt to only see the things that you follow, except through, you can say, well, no, there's a setting. And if you do the setting, and if you go to this other tab, and that's way more steps than people actually engage. Yeah. So this phenomenon that you're describing of audience capture, the thing that made you feel like you were saving the world, or that makes Stu Peters or think that he can make a bunch of money off a meme coin, or whatever it is that we're talking about, that thing's getting stronger and more powerful. There has to be a policy solution. I believe in free speech, believe in the open marketplace of ideas, but there also has to be some good policy. Don't claim to know what it is.
Yeah, neither.
Some good policy that helps us navigate these things. Something that gives us the ability to point people to truth that's actually true, instead of only the truth that's sensational enough to feed that rage that's in them, or to feed that doubt that's in them, or to feed that tribalism that, you say the Jews look out for each other, but you've come to realize that lots of groups of people look out for each other, and there's a part of that that's probably good. If you're the Jews and you lived in diaspora for 2,000 years, you have to look out for each other. And then there's a part of it that's bad. When you apply standards to your own community that you wouldn't, when you let your own community get away with things that you wouldn't let other communities.
Yes.
Well, that's when tribalism becomes a bad thing.
And that's human nature too.
And that's human nature.
It's not just that. I mean, even Indians coming in America, they're going to fight Indophobia, Muslims, Islamophobia. Now white people are waking up to, hey, and that's anti-white. So this group, it's a group strategies to survive. I mean, the Jews have been pogromed throughout history. They're the best organized group I've ever seen. They have organizations to organize their organizations. So they're very successful at that. That's why they succeed in this world. Are there bad ones? Yeah, there's bad everybody. So going back to what you said, it's funny because someone's going to clip like, I wouldn't mind cheating on my wife and boo, 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 right? That's what's going to happen.
I know how the world works.
But that's an excellent point you're making. Because
I built a successful media company, so I don't have to care
anymore.
You'll
be fine. But I just wrote an article about audience capture and how it is programming you. It's about keeping you on. It's about dragging you back in. I took 4 days off of Twitter just to do it, see if I can, during the Metcalf thing, during USS Liberty, everything, where I should be talking. I'm like, nope, I'm going to stay out of this just to see how I felt better. Just not waiting for a response from someone, not arguing anyone. There's so much anxiety that goes into social media, and then you're hooked onto it, and people are addicted to it. And the scrolling and all this stuff, and it's designed to keep you there, even not letting you put other links to other sites to keep you on X. You have to like pretend, if I put a Substack article, I got to put a picture, then I got to put the Substack article underneath so that this one doesn't get read. There's so many things, Jeremy, designed to keep us addicted to these things. And these companies don't care about our well-being. They don't even care about the truth. They care about profits. So it's not even a conspiracy theory. They want to make money. They are a company. It's a free product. Well, not X, unless you buy premium, it's not free, but you're the product. And they're data mining us. They're selling it to corporations. They're probably surveying us in many ways. So yeah, it's very dangerous what's happening. I don't know the solution. I'm already trying to think of it as I'm talking. Like, what can they do to control this, or rather prevent this from happening? I don't know how they would do it, but it's a good question. Maybe some people should look into how they would be able to stop this from happening, but I don't think they want it to stop from happening. Because like you said, it's not the good news that drives X, it's the bad news.
It's the things that appeal most to our most base nature.
Yes, of course, yeah.
It's
sex sells and violence.
Right. Violence sells, sex sells.
Fear, what's coming for us. The story of a firefighter saving a cat from a building is one out of 10 stories.
Which is why historically we've at least had the ability to say what we want to see.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say, well, yeah, but you're lying to yourself, because what we now know technologically is that you linger on the bad stuff. Even if you say what you want is the good stuff, you linger on the bad stuff. Well, yeah, that's called being human. But the reason we've been able to build civilization, the reason that we have fathers and mothers, and the reason that we have society isn't because we don't naturally linger on the bad. It's because we can choose the good. And I worry that what's happening now algorithmically is we're losing the ability to choose the good. As you move forward, and make content, you're going to continue to say things that you believe, say things that you think are true. And my audience is going to continue to have to not like a lot of those things. I don't agree with you kind of on the fundamental nature of war. And so I don't agree with you about Gaza, for example. Certainly I agree with you about the tragedy of Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question. There's no world in which innocent people die that should be celebrated. That's
right.
It's a absolute terrible thing. War, as you have experienced personally, war is hellish, and urban warfare is the most hellish thing that man's ever devised. In the long history of warfare, this sort of mechanized urban warfare is still brand new.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically existed for 100 years, basically since the Second World War, and that's when you think about having to fight Hamas in the Gaza Strip, where there are 2.1 million people crammed into a unbelievably tiny stretch of densely populated territory, I don't know what the answer to how to do that is that isn't horrific. And I know that sometimes nations have to do it. I know that when ISIS is chopping people's heads off in Paris, Donald Trump has to go bomb ISIS in Syria. That's part of the responsibility of being the leader of the world, the president of the United States. That when you're dad, you sometimes have to do terrible things in defense of family. of your family, just as a metaphor. I know that if Israel wanted to wipe the Palestinians of Gaza off the map and eradicate them from the face of the earth, it could have been done rapidly. They certainly have the power. No one could have stopped them from doing it. I know that I know that Israel has lost almost 1,000 troops in the war in Gaza, which, if you have the power to eradicate your enemy from the air and to literally kill all 2 million of them, I don't know why you send 1,000 of your sons to die kicking down doors looking for the bad guys. But none of that changes the horror of it. Right. I certainly understand why, when you look at that, you see something horrible, because you are seeing something horrible. I know that if I were looking at that, having experienced what you experienced at 18 and 19, my reaction to it might be even more visceral than it is. But I also know that if I were to look at it coming through 14 years, or at the time of the invasion of Gaza, let's say 12 years of being immersed in this JQ community that you've belonged to, I think that would obviously color how I see it as well. And so I suspect that the way that you see it is still impacted by that journey that you've been on in ways that you may see differently in the future. I don't say that to be condescending or patronizing, or to say that even my view of the war in Gaza is right. My view of the war in Gaza is complicated. I don't know what... I'm glad that I'm not the prime minister of Israel.
Yeah, my opinion has, in a way... Well, I've always been a two-state solution guy, which nobody likes, by the way. So the Palestinians hate that. The Israelis hate that. That's my position. It's never changed. But when I was going crazy, Israel's got to go. But another ethnic cleansing, it doesn't solve the problem. It's like river to the sea doesn't solve it either. That's why I say, I don't know, fix it somehow. But I'm beyond that now, Jeremy. Like I said what I said. I tried to save everyone or whatever in my seeking the truth and trying to express some kind of justice for people that I'm not related to. And I have not. And by the way, my beef with Israel was always about 9/11 or the USS Liberty or the Iraq War. If I never thought Israel was involved in anything, what was my beef? It would still be terrible. Like, for example, what happened with Yemen and Saudi Arabia? People are starving to death. What's happened in Russia, Ukraine? Nobody even talks about it anymore.
Yeah, 1 million casualties.
So I talked to Jake Turks. He's like, why is Gaza such a big deal? Because of us. It's because of us and our war. And, and I understand his perspective there. So for me, the content that if I even make any more content moving forward, I want nothing to do with politics. I want to pursue philosophy, write books. I want to go back to what I was doing before I got into this, which was help people on an individual level.
What I want for you and for people in your community is the world is a tragic place. Mm-hmm. The world is filled with broken people doing bad things. As I said at the beginning, with imperfect information, with good intentions gone awry, and with bad intentions as well. I don't think the world's nearly as complicated as the conspiracy theorist believes it to be. I don't believe that there's omniscient and omnipotent people who are capable of pulling off most of the things that the conspiracy theorist believes that they're capable of pulling off. But mostly I know that despite the tragedy of life is also beautiful and glorious. And I think that when people get sucked into the world of conspiracy, when people get sucked into anti-Semitism, which I believe is a kind of mental sickness, because it obscures your ability to rightly perceive the world. I don't claim that all of my perceptions about the world are correct. Of course not. I'm like a upright primate with a brain roughly the size of a cantaloupe, just like everybody else. I can barely do math. I don't know. I'm wrong about all kinds of stuff. But I believe that, very broadly speaking, I'm not sucked into a destructive cycle of doubt and despair that leads to anger, as so many people who are conspiracy-minded are. I don't want to burn down the world and build something new. I don't think if we could burn down the world, I don't think we would build something better. I think we'd probably build something worse. I think the wisdom of our fathers, which was deeply imperfect wisdom because they were imperfect like us, but building on top of the wisdom of our fathers generation after generation after generation, leaves us even now with all of the myriad problems of modernity in a far better place than if we were to just start over and force down our current in vogue view. And I mean my current in vogue view, or your current in vogue view, or Nick Fuentes' current in vogue view, or Jake Shield. It doesn't matter. Like, if we could take one perspective and shove it down everybody's throats right now, it's going to be worse than the system that's naturally evolved over the generations, and particularly in the West, particularly because of the both rightness and efficacy of Christianity, which has given us one of the most just and equitable and merit-based societies in the world, although deeply, deeply, deeply flawed.
Certainly flawed, yes.
Deeply, deeply, deeply flawed. But I haven't yet seen an example of a society that isn't deeply, deeply, deeply flawed.
Precisely.
And I certainly prefer this one to North Korea or to living in Taliban-controlled Afghanistan, or the Soviet Union with the Great Terror and the things that we know totalitarian states have done in the past. So what I want for you and for the people in your world is, it sounds funny, but it's sort of like, I want you guys to know that the world isn't as bad as you think it is. I want you to be freed from the burden of thinking that powers are arrayed against you through deliberate machination, who want to hold you into bondage. When the reality is, of course, there are people who would hold you in bondage if they could, but the system really hasn't empowered those people in any major way in this country in this time. And so what you have in front of you is enormous opportunity. What's in front of your children is enormous opportunity. I think what will harm you, and therefore harm your true mission in life and your family over time, is to stay mired in that. And it's why it's so encouraging to see the journey that you've been on, to see someone coming out of being mired in all of that, because, like, the sun's shining and the birds are singing and horrible things happen in the world, 100%. And I'm not even saying that we have no responsibility to try to impact the horrible things that are happening in the world. On the contrary, I'm certain we do. Although I think there's a lot of wisdom in realizing
that we can't. I mean, one of my Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching, and it sounds like a passive person doesn't. No, there's Wu Wei. There's ways to impact the world, but you can only go so much.
You can't control it.
Right. You can try to go against the flow. You go upriver, you're going to get pushed down. That doesn't mean give up. I think certain people are put in certain positions to make a bigger difference. Certain people have certain talents,
Sure.
Things like that. Someone like me, I think I've exhausted myself in every way imaginable. And when I told Jake Turks and Yakov in our interview, I think I had to go to the extreme, Jeremy, to see that I am 100% wrong going this path. That I'm a creative person. I mean, my music was funny and offensive, but I could do better things for people. My emails that I used to get, like, "Hey, Lucas, I'm going to the gym because of you." While I'm in the JQ, "Hey, Lucas, I left my girlfriend who's crazy. I stopped doing drugs because of you." Those are the emails I like. Of course, I would love to stop the war. 14 years of trying to stop all this Jewish power, whatever. I haven't stopped one bomb, one bullet, one baby from dying anywhere in the world, not just Israel or anywhere else. I cannot do anything other than be a father now at this point. So I'm saying to people watching and everyone else who's followed me, like, what else can I possibly do? And I want to be a good father. Like, I've always been a good father and husband, but I'll give you an example. I'll be at the table and eating dinner and I'm not there. I'm on the internet talking about, oh, man, what about the Rothschilds or something? And going back to that sickness, I do believe there's a form of anti-Semitism where it's like, Jew, every morning, F the Jews, good morning. That's when that is sick. And I was doing that, and I'll tell you what happened. I was on Rumble one day, and I was streaming. I said, what the hell am I doing? Literally in the middle of the stream, what the hell am I doing here? It just, like that. Yeah. It snapped in front of my whole audience. Like, this is over. I'm done, in my gut. So I want to go on with my life. That's what I'm doing here, to show you, your audience, other people, and hopefully other people go, you know what, he's right. I didn't sell out. No one bought. That's why a lot of Jewish people are shocked. They're not paying me. They're like, how did this guy, what happened to him? I didn't pay him. Did you pay him? It's like, I'm telling you what happened to me.
I'm going to tell you the funniest thing about Jewish conspiracy theories. I've never once met a Jew who parts with their money very easily.
Right. That's why I said
this idea that the Jews are just paying us all. Yeah, if only. Like, I'm for sale. I can't get a Jew to pay me. Yeah. I've known a lot more Jewish people probably in the last 20 years than you. I've had occasion to know more Jewish people than you over the last 20 years. I lived in LA, which is one of the most densely populated communities of Jews in the world, for 20 years. I've had a lot of Jewish people invest in me. I don't mean economically. I mean invest in me in all the ways that we mean that term. You know, share their counsel with me, share advice with me, invite me to their table, share with me their perspectives and their wisdom. I've had Jewish friends, and I had a Jewish business partner. One of the most famous religious Jew probably in the world today was my business partner for 11 years. And I've traveled to Israel on different occasions. I've seen probably what I would think is the reality of Jewish people. Reformed, conservative, Orthodox. It's funny. I've attended a Reform Passover Seder, a conservative Passover Seder, and an Orthodox Passover Seder in my day. And for people who don't understand those distinctions, it's like you might as well be saying that like I've been hosted by the Catholics and by the Lutherans, you know, and by the Universalists or whatever. Like it's completely totally different. They don't see eye to eye on much of anything. And the thing that I've kind of come to realize in my interactions with enormous numbers of Jewish people is that the best thing you can say about the Jews and the worst thing you can say about the Jews is how they're just like everybody else.
That's right.
And the idea that the Jews are more cohesive than many other groups of people, there's a lot of truth to it. But you know, something that you hear from Jews when you talk to them is that
always debating each other.
Well, and even beyond that, one of the lessons of the Holocaust that really shocked Jews is that they realized that the rest of the world didn't see all of the distinctions among Jews that they see among themselves. There's no Ashkenazi or Sephardim to the Nazis.
Right, exactly.
There's no Reform or conservative or Orthodox or Hasidic. There's no secular or from. All of those terms go out the door, and it's just Jew. And I think that was for survivors of the Holocaust, for the people who settled the state of Israel in 1948. That was unthinkable to them that could be true, because they see all the variation, they see all the disagreement, even hostility between different groups of Jews that exist in all peoples around the world that we sometimes don't perceive. So even when we say that they can be uniquely cohesive, which I think is true and is largely a product of persecution across time, they're only so much more cohesive than other groups of people. They're still they're still just like everybody else.
From talking to many of them about their history, there's an interesting story when, I forget which general it was. I think it was Vespasian or the first Jewish war, I believe. One of the generals, I think it was Titus, he was on his way to destroy everyone. And he got there and they were already killing each other. And he's like, he didn't want to get his victory wreath because he's like, I cannot take victory over people whose God abandoned them. Hanukkah is between Jews who were Hellenized versus the Jews who didn't want to be. They're always hurting each other. Tiberius Alexander was a Jew general. It was like, so there are, but see, the problem is, and this is where I realized this. People say Jews are a monolith, from Hitler and Kodrianu, all these people. But the reality is they react monolithically to Jew hatred.
That's correct.
No different than if I said we should bring back slavery and black people, every black person would be like, no, they don't need a world black Congress or any Hindu phobia or any Islamophobia. If I say Muslims suck, hey, wait a minute, I didn't do it. So Jews act monolithically to anti-Semitism, especially because of the Holocaust. They have PTSD from the Holocaust. So they go, let's never again. And one of the most powerful uniters of their people is the Holocaust and reaction to it. Never again, I believe, is actually the new religion for them, like beyond Judaism, I think, because a lot of secular Jews are like never. George Soros is an atheist. He wants open society to never again. We cannot let Europe become another Hitler and things like this. I understand his point. I understand where he comes from. I understand what Karl Popper taught him. I get it. But it's dangerous for them. A lot of left-wing Jews are causing damage when the Germans were being boycotted.
Yeah, but a lot of left-wing humans are causing damage.
Correct.
People blame the Jews for our open borders.
And we have the Vatican. And
left-wing Catholics are worse on the border than
and liberal. And people say a lot of the white nationalists think we just need race. Dude, half of our race is liberal, man. What are you talking about? Like you don't have anything in common with this guy in Seattle with his nose rings and people.
Well, what we need is good ideas.
Yes.
We need there are no. I'm thinking about a friend of the show who will say no one is good because she likes to throw Calvinism at me as a joke. But we need well-intentioned people operating in good faith, pursuing good ideas. Bad ideas are behind every bad thing that's ever happened.
Sure.
And no group of people has, the monopoly on bad ideas. No group of people has a monopoly on bad people. And I think you actually made a really profound point, which is not just true of the Jews and the Holocaust, but and anti-Semitism, but really a lot of tribalism is driven by external hostility.
Yep.
One reason we don't have white race consciousness in America is because we haven't had to. We've been a majority. And there's really no such thing as white people.
Yeah.
America was settled by the British, and then it was even more Germans came over, and then the Irish came over, and then the Italians came over. And that European migration that came in all of those different waves didn't see themselves as one group of people. The reason you see an emerging white consciousness in the country now is because there is opposition to that, what has historically been a diverse set of people, and they're being treated as one group of people.
It's an umbrella term, like the word Jew. Like Jews are different peoples. There's Mizrahi, there's Yemeni, there's Sephardic, there's Ashkenazi, and Jew is like an umbrella term, just like white is an umbrella term, right? So,
and when you start treating people monolithically, they
act like a monolith. Exactly, and that's something I want to let my former audience understand. Like, guys, yeah, I understand what you're seeing, but they're acting that way because we're attacking them as one group, and we're doing the same thing. A lot of Jews support Israel. I said, Jake, why do you support Israel? He's an Orthodox Jew. I'm like, is it because it's an escape pod, right? First of all, people are there. They're already there no matter how it got there, right? Like if I go into a war zone, whether the war is just or not, I either got to get out of there alive or not. Like we're under attack. What do we do?
Somebody's shooting at you.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care about why Reagan or Bush or whoever president. Okay, they're already there. Okay. And also, it's an escape pod. Now, what are white people doing? Watch this. Australia is under attack. We got to save Ireland. I'm not Irish, but here I am saying, because what if America goes down? We could all go back to Europe. But how are we going to go back to Europe if all these people are coming from Asia and Africa? So even we're thinking, so now white people are thinking like this. So going back to the Jews, they're the best identity politicians ever in history because that's why they survived. And they had to do it. And you know what's crazy? One of the rabbis said to me, without anti-Semitism, Jews would disappear. They'd blend into us. They wouldn't exist. So a lot of them believe it's from Hashem. They say it's a way to keep them in order. First of all, we are allowed to be anti-Semitic to them as long as we don't hurt them. So if I say, hey, Rabbi, what are you doing on Shabbat? Put your phone down. That's okay. I can rebuke him. But if it's like, I got to kill you now, you can't do that, right? So I think it's important that we have these conversations, especially when I sat down with the Jewish people. I said, look, I don't want to hurt you. I want you to know that. But I think these conversations need to happen more.
Yeah.
And I think it has to be good faith. It has to be like I said earlier off camera, I've been able to shut off my emotions for the first time. I've been saying this whole time, I'm not emotional for like years. I'm not emotional. I'm a tough Marine. I'm actually extremely emotional. And I just recently once I saw my former supporters turn on me, it was the final stab in my heart. And I'm not trying to be dramatic. It was like, okay, government betrayed, the betrayal story. You can see that.
Oh yeah.
But okay, I don't belong with anyone. And because I don't belong with anyone, guess what I can do? I could be the referee. So I could say, all right, I don't belong to any group. I'm going to just call out injustice everywhere. And that actually makes me unbiased. And my word weighs more, Jeremy, that way. It's like if I were a referee between Israel and Palestine and I wore a keffiyeh, that's not fair. If I wore a Star of David, it wouldn't be fair to the other side. If I wore even if I have a bias, hey, listen, that's a red card. I'm sorry. That's more just and that's more honest of me to be. So I find myself politically homeless in a way. Not that I say I'm not conservative or liberal or whatever. I mean, like, I don't want to be part of anything. I want to be on my own. And if I could help get people out of the extremist views that I held just by talking like this and having conversations with any person without any animosity, and that helps, that's fine. I love to do that.
You were born in Italy.
Yes.
Moved here when you were
two.
Presumably your family's Catholic.
Yeah, all of them, yeah.
Yeah. How did you end up being a pantheist?
A pantheist, yeah. Well, again, it's go back. My grandfather, when he was a little kid, he said he saw the Virgin Mary in the sky. That's what he's, Mamma ci stanno giorni in cielo, meaning there's a woman in the sky. He described her Virgin Mary literally, but he's 6 years old. That's the story though. Maybe he saw it, maybe not. Super religious. He would do prayers in Latin. So I grew up as a Catholic, Sunday dinners, we go to church. It just didn't, over time after, in my 20s, after the war, I'm praying to God. My father gave me holy water from Lourdes. I sprayed on the Humvee and all these little things. I had a rosary on my flak jacket. But after the war, I'm like, what kind of God would allow this? You know, why is this? I'm praying, but that guy got blown up. He's praying too, though. And you know, they're praying to Allah and they're getting blown up. It's the same God, apparently. So either God does not intervene or he doesn't care. It's one of the other things you could think of. And I just got away from it. It didn't add up anymore to me. But I don't deny that there's some force that keeps everything together. I just don't think it's personal. I don't think it's a person that intervenes with our lives. I don't think it has anger. I don't think it has jealousy. I think these are imperfect traits. I don't think an omni-trait God is even is possible. I don't think a personal God is possible because personhood requires a boundary. It requires a locus where if it's omnipresent, then it must be literally everywhere. And if it's not in one place, then it's not there. So God would have to literally be everything. And to be omniscient, he would have to know things like how not to be God, how to be dead, how to be, he can't do that. Could God even know his true nature? How does God know he wasn't created? He even has epistemic limits. Omnipotence. Well, is it he could do anything he wants or only what's logically possible? But God created logic, so why can't he change logic? Well, he can't because it's illogical. Well, then he's bounded by logic. There's the Aretha dilemma. You know, is God good because everything God does is good, or does he have a standard above him that makes him good? So there's a lot of philosophical things that I looked into, but I don't argue against people's religions because I think that if it makes you a good person and you love what it's doing, great. I only will argue if it's someone suffering. Like I remember Richard Dawkins saying, you know, there's a woman who was terrified of hell. It drove her nuts. And he was able to get her away from that. But if you're a Christian and you have family and community and you enjoy it and you do Christmas and you do everything else, why would I take that from you? Even if I could take it from you, I wouldn't do it. And who says I can? Because you can't just decide not to believe in God. You have to be convinced otherwise. So I don't argue religion with people. I don't care. I do believe that there's something sustaining everything. I just don't think it's a personal entity. Could I be wrong? Is there a way it could be that's beyond my reasoning? Perhaps.
I'm going to laugh at myself for the question that I'm about to ask you because it's reminiscent of Norm Macdonald's favorite question: where do your ideas come from? But where do your ideas come from? What to the extent that you don't believe in God, you don't believe in a font of knowledge or a font of wisdom, and yet you've devoted, however imperfectly, your entire adult life to the pursuit of truth. The first question is a moral question. Why? Why would truth matter? And the second question is a practical question. It's the same question, but it's on a practical level. What, in service of what?
Well, what is truth? I mean, truth is what the state of reality is as it is. Now, we have a epistemic limit to that. We cannot observe reality literally as it is beyond their five senses. Right now, there's radio waves going through this room. You and I can't see them. There's frequencies your dog can pick up with his ears that we can't.
Well, not him. He's very old.
Well, he's old and yeah. But we are limited in our human form. So we don't know. We can only see phenomenon. We can't access noumena. We cannot know without sense perception, without representation. So what we can know is when something is no longer the case. So in science, when we do our things, we have models, if it's falsifiable, and then it predicts something until it no longer does, or it's explained better. With analytic truths, 2 + 2 is 4, or any tautologies, unmarried men or bachelors, we know that for certain because we developed those terms. But we don't know the nature of the world. We don't even know our own nature. So what is the truth essentially? Well, if you're a pragmatist, it's what works. If it's a coherentist, it's what all adds up. If you're a foundationalist, it's the one thing that you build on top. It's God. If you're Descartes, but frankly, it's what I think is congruent with reality in your experience. Now you could say, well, that's solipsistic. Well, that's why you need other people to converge to it. And that's why there's doubt, and that's why there's conspiracy theories, and that's why we don't know anything. So I don't think we're ever going to know the absolute truth. It's inaccessible to us. But why is it good? It's for our survival. It's for order. It's for justice. But what does that even mean? What is justice? Can I pick it out of a tree and show you justice? What is good? Can I bring? No, you can't. But it comes down to our survival as human beings, our well-being. I mean, I ask people this question all the time. If God said, do everything I say, but there's no eternal life, would you follow him? Do all these little things. You cannot have external relationships, extramarital relationships. You can't do this to Jeremy, but you're going to die after. Would you follow God? I don't know if you would, So there's little tricks I ask people who believe that put him in a corner there. And one of them is that one, like, well, what if there's nothing after this? But he exists though. He could give you eternal life, but he doesn't want to. What do you do with that? You see? One person will say, well, Jake Turk said, listen, if there is no God, at least this is the best life for us. We have order, we have family, so this is a better way to live life than some hedonistic fool who gets STDs and, dies of an overdose. That's not a bad argument. But why, for me, it's what drives me forward. I just like order, Jeremy. That's what I like.
I'm going to suggest to you, and it would be fun a long time from now, 20 years from now, to come back and have a conversation about it. But I'm going to suggest to you that you're very intelligent. You've studied philosophy. Your view of the world is not superficial or foolish. I think it's mistaken in this regard. But I'm going to suggest that your view of God is still emanating out of the underlying victimology coming out of your trauma in the war. That even when I asked you to tell me about your journey of faith or non-faith just now, it came back to the war in Iraq. It came back to your experiences and thoughts that you had in reaction to those experiences. And I just wonder if at the end of, it's funny how in Christianity people deconstruct, right? They deconstruct out of their faith. And in a strange way, I wonder if you're on a journey that will deconstruct you back toward faith.
Well, my doubting began in Iraq, but it didn't finish there. So,
Sure.
So I've developed a lot more arguments against.
I think you've got very strong arguments against God.
Very good. I don't know if you saw my Substack on meaning.
I did.
And about the who makes the final judgments. I mean, it's really, because you could decide Christianity's wrong, and then what? Lucifer in heaven said, I'm done with you. Now what do? You got to send me to hell because you don't own me. You actually don't have authority over me. So that's a very powerful argument. And then the problem of evil is.
I don't think that actually is. I think that in some ways you are straw-manning actual Christian positions. So, for example,
which one, by the way? Because none of you guys agree. There's so many Christians. But go ahead. I'd like to see this one.
Well, only that, the oldest manuscript in the Bible is the book of Job. And in the book of Job, the devil has to actually seek permission from God in order to act, because God's authority is sovereign even over the devil. So this idea that, you don't have any control over me because I reject you, I don't think that's true. God does. God is still God. The devil is not some sort of, the devil hasn't freed himself from the sovereignty of God.
But then did God make Lucifer rebel against him?
No.
Well, that still makes my argument strong. He chose to, out of I think it was jealousy, right? It wasn't even like a disobedience.
Well,
I'm better than you.
What you're talking about is the question of free will. And the question of free will is, I think it's informative, and I think that it's useful, but I don't think that it's absolute. I think that it's a part of a mystery that exists in our relationship with God. To what extent do we make choices, and to what extent are we functioning within sort of divine purpose and God's sovereign plan? But those mysteries can't really be resolved. Again, we have cantaloupe-sized brains. The reason that I would argue in favor of Christianity, ultimately it's because I'm convinced that there's no hope for man apart from Christ. That God, who is omni-everything, as you described, and therefore is impersonal and has no boundaries, bound himself and made himself personal when he took on flesh as man. That is and you say, well, can God know anything about death? Of course he can't, because death is anti-God. And yet the text deals with this. It says that he learned from what he suffered. It says that Christ learned from what he suffered, which, to the extent that it says God and the Father and the Son are one, means that God created a mechanism by which he could do even the things that he couldn't do. He created a mechanism by which he could obey. He created a mechanism by which he could faith. He created a mechanism by which he could die. And I think that so much of the wisdom that actually allows man, to borrow from your Orthodox Jewish friend, I'm not a pragmatist. I don't agree that it's enough to believe in God simply because this is the best life that's available to us. But I do believe that believing in God does lead to the best life that's available to you. Particularly believing in Christ is putting your faith in Christ leads to the best life that's available to you. I don't think that that's enough of a reason to believe in him if it isn't true. But I think that
it's like Pascal's wagers. I mean, he wasn't saying that. Yeah, I was saying if there's no Hashem. He was like, well,
he wasn't saying there's no Hashem. He's saying if.
Just to clarify.
Yeah, and I'm saying that I agree that even if there is no God, this is still a better way to live. I don't agree that that would be enough of a reason to believe.
Well, Christianity, I mean, all the things about, against homosexuality and things like that, of course, it's a more healthy life. It's a better family, and then if everyone's out for themselves, might is right, Satanism, killing everyone, do what you want, do without will, it would be a disaster. I mean, these religions do have a purpose, I feel. I mean, they do create civilizations. They create order and justice and so on.
I think that's right. But I think that to say they have a purpose, but that purpose doesn't apply to you, I think exempts yourself from one of the great parts of the journey of life.
Well, I don't need a father figure to tell me not to kill children or babies, or I don't need, like, if someone said, look, pedophilia is legal.
Of course, but I disagree that the purpose of religion is only to give us moral framework. In fact, I say often, I don't believe that God is fundamentally a moral instrument. He's an instrument of righteousness, but he's not an instrument of morality.
There's something called process theology where God actually lives with us and learns from us. He's not this omnipotent, omniscient. He's the most powerful thing. He's the most knowledgeable thing, but he still has an interact. That would be more, to me, a more of accepting entity than this perfect, never changing. How does he think if he can't change? I mean, there's so many problems with these belief systems, but a process theology, a entity that grows with us, that's personal. That's a personal relationship that it benefits him too. That's why he changes his mind. That's why he regretted flooding the world, or, now it makes sense. You see what I mean? Rather than, because a lot of people who deconstruct, Jeremy, are those who read the Bible from front to back. Like,
oh, sure.
This guy Justin DZ Deconstruction Zone, this guy on YouTube, several of these people were deep into it, and they like, wait a minute, this makes no sense. And he uses the Bible to refute people, and it's like, okay, but there's always a misinterpretation or out of context. I have a friend who's Muslim. He's like, the Quran's perfect. I'm like, well, how is it perfect though? Like, well, there's no mistakes. I pull up, here's a bunch of mistakes, out of context, So there's always that with religious people. But like, my father's extremely religious because of his father. I don't argue with him. He said, Jesus loves you. I say, okay, Dad, sure, it's fine. As long as everyone's happy and they function properly. I also think you cannot eliminate religion. I don't think that you could debunk all religions. I don't think you could debunk anything forever. Even flat Earth is still going.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I agree with your dad. Jesus loves you. We've gone long.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to ask you one last question before we let you go.
Absolutely.
You're going through this giant transition. You've been places that certainly most people watching this interview have not been. And now you're journeying somewhere new. Where this road leads,
I have no idea.
You have no idea. But what do you hope that you're remembered for? What do you believe your mission to be?
I in a way, I've always wanted to save humanity and help people. I think that by me going to this level and getting out of it will save people and help people change for the better. I want to be remembered for improving people's lives. That's what I want to be remembered for. I don't want to. I'm done destroying, Jeremy. I'm just done with war. I'm done with it. I'm not even commenting about the Iran war. I've said nothing really. I just want to move on and be positive. And that may sound cringe or something, but when you put yourself at risk this long, and your family and your wife and everyone else, and then what do you get out of it? It's not even like good. And then everyone you fought for thinks you're a traitor. It's like, well, okay, I'm going to just go, good luck. You go fight the Jews all you want. I'm out of here. I want to make a positive contribution. And hopefully it comes with my philosophy. I have a few papers I have in peer review which actually is an accomplishment, not being an academic at all.
Yeah.
You know, and people say it's AI, like I dictate my work into Word. So I verbally, all my ideas, Claude, let's make it into an academic paper. Of course, he's going to shape it up nice, but authorship is your ideas. I have novel ideas on the Agrippa trilemma. I have my own metaphysics called infrastructural monism. I have structural nominalism. A lot of my things have to do with structure and synthesizing old works together. So I'm a systems person like you, actually. I don't care about the little details. I never really liked politics because I don't know the in and out. Well, Trump said this to Biden. I don't care. I have a book called The Fractured State where I provide my own system of government called neo-federal unifism. It's a novel idea. So I have it out there on my website, lucasgage.com. I have a book called 99 Ways to Improve Your Life, which was on the back burner for years.
Yeah.
Now, coming from me, why would anyone read that book? You were just screaming your face off like a maniac. That's not really me. That's me unhinged, under attack, and extremely emotional, and pursuing what I thought was absolute justice and truth, only to go, okay, I'm wrong. And that's okay. And I want people to learn that it's okay. And you know what it is too, Jeremy? A lot of people are held by their beliefs. I'm the kind of person who holds a belief. And if I'm wrong, good. Because then I learn the truth. I want to learn the truth, right? If this is not the truth and I leave it, but people identify with their beliefs. And if this is wrong, then they're wrong. And their ego goes, that's death, ego death. That's embarrassment, that you lose your money, you lose your follower. I don't care about any of that. So what I want to be remembered for is someone who sought justice, corrected himself, is a fallible person who seeks to improve himself so other people can go, me too, I can do that. And I don't know, that's really it, I guess. I mean, it is interesting though that I've sat here with you, I'm sitting with all these different people. And, you know, I hope that your audience sees I'm being sincere, and I think I've been extremely transparent. My wife says I'm too transparent, to my detriment, and that's fine. But I have nothing to be afraid of. I don't care about being embarrassed. I mean, I've made jokes about myself, you know, 95 IQ, and I'm Jewish, and I'm a Mossad asset. I'm leaning into that, or whatever else. I like to make fun of myself because I'm not afraid of people's critiques or what they believe of me. Because when you think about it, Jeremy, most people don't know how to think critically anyway. And if they do know how to think, they worry about what other people think. So they're not even thinking for themselves. So who cares what they think? So what I think about myself is the most important thing. And I felt like it's time to correct my life, let go of a war that I've been holding on for at least 23 years, and start being a positive person, to put the warrior away. Because I'm going to tell you this right now, and I admit this openly. I was afraid to put him away. I was afraid to put him away because if I did, I'd become weak. And if I become weak, I can't protect my family. But it was the very warrior that put him in danger, all my family and friends. And what did it do? It brought a war to me that I had really no right to be involved in the first place. Because before I started this war, I wanted to just help people. How am I helping people screaming all day?
Yeah.
So hopefully, you know, people understand what I've gone through. They think about it. I will say to the audience watching and those who are hating on this video to fact check everyone. Fact check the people you trust. Fact check your beliefs. It's okay if you're wrong, let it go, move forward, be positive, because this world is already way too negative. And I think I've been swimming in the negativity for way too long. And I think I deserve some peace too.
Lucas Gage, thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy, for having me.